What's up, Notjust developers? Welcome back to a new live tutorial. Today we're going to build a meditation application and more specifically the Headspace clone. We're going to do that with React Native, with Expo and RevenueCat, and to be more precise, this is what we're going to build by the end of this video. This is going to be a tutorial meant for everyone who is maybe just getting started with React Native, or for developers that already have experience with React Native and want to practice and build more, because we're gonna also cover some a bit more advanced topics till the end. So we're gonna start by building the user interface of our application by being able to see a list of different meditations in our application. Then we're gonna build the audio experience for a meditation, and moreover we're going to learn here more about animations so that we're going to animate the background here nicely. I'm going to show you in a second the demo, and at the end we're going to implement in-app subscriptions for the application, because when thinking about a meditation application like Headspace or Calm, what really stands out is their business model and their ability to generate a really successful business with this use case. So when planning this tutorial, I actually decided to focus on the in-app subscriptions to showcase how you can add paywalls and how you can monetize your application using subscriptions. The tech stack that we're going to use in today's video is going to be React Native. We're going to use Expo. And we're going to use Expo Router for the navigation. We're going to actually use the Expo SDK 52, and if you're watching it later, maybe this is going to already be the default one or already an old SDK version. But at the moment of recording this video, SDK 52 is in beta. I gave it a try and it brings a lot of new stuff, and it actually brings some stuff that we are going to use in today's video. And I'm not going to get into a lot of details there, but the most important parts that Expo SDK 52 brings is React Native 0.76 with the new architecture enabled by default. We're going to use that today. And the Expo Audio library, that is a new library that is going to replace the old Expo AV. So I wanted to showcase these libraries and make sure that you're going to use this tutorial long ahead in future to learn and build together with me. We're also going to use Native Wind in this video, and Native Wind allows us to use Tailwind classes to style our components. And more recently I fell in love with using Native Wind on mobile, because yes, I was using Tailwind CSS on the web for a very long time, but on mobile Native Wind in the past was had a couple of issues. But now with the recent version, it's really stable, and it's a joy to design UIs using Tailwind. More about this a bit later. And for managing and implementing the in-app subscriptions, we're going to use RevenueCat, not only to manage the subscriptions, but also to build our paywalls. In fact, RevenueCat is the sponsor of today's video. And if you don't know about RevenueCat, what RevenueCat is a platform and payment infrastructure that help you manage in-app subscriptions both on App Store, Play Store, and also on web as well. So with RevenueCat, you just have to integrate with one simple API instead of having to integrate with different APIs for every single platform. And then RevenueCat takes care of all the hard parts behind the scenes of managing the subscriptions, of managing everything, of the life cycle of your users across different platforms. And it's specifically useful whenever we're building cross-platform application targeting both Android, iOS, and even web. They have SDKs for everything that you can imagine. We're going to use the React Native SDK today, and it also works with Expo. And besides the infrastructure for payment and in-app subscriptions, they also provide very important tools for subscription growth, such as customizable paywalls that you can customize remotely without having to rebuild your application, using segmentation and showing different paywalls to different segments of your customers to increase the revenue, and also A/B testing that will also help you increase the revenue, test different variations of images or maybe copy or maybe pricing, and with this experimentation see what drives more growth and more revenue to your application. And in the end, you get like a unique dashboard for analytics that is gathering all the data from different platforms: iOS, Android, Stripe, Roku for web, and so on. All right, so thank you very much, RevenueCat, for sponsoring this video. And later in the video, we're gonna see how we can use RevenueCat in React Native in Expo to integrate and manage in-app subscriptions. If you're ready, I'm ready. Let's roll the intro and let's get started. Before we get started, make sure to follow the link in the description below to access the guide. You can also go at assets.notjust.dev/headspace, and there you're gonna find the step-by-step guide with all the things that we're gonna do today, with code snippets, with also some dummy data. So yeah, after you follow the link, you're gonna get access to this guide. All right, hello everyone who is joining us live. How are you doing, guys? Hello, Francesco. Hello, Rogelio, Rakshit, Mahabek. How are you doing, guys? Bas, Nikos, Yup. Hello, Risky. Hello, Jürgen. Thank you very much for the support. I really appreciate that. Hello, hello. All right, so let's get started because we have, as always, a lot to do today, and I really want to cover as much as possible. So the first step in our build is going to be to get started and set up our project. As I said, we're going to use Expo SDK 52, so I'm going to open Expo SDK 52 release notes, because this is still in beta at the moment of recording this video. But as I said, it brings like a lot of new stuff. To test it out, we are going to we can upgrade or we can use the at beta when we specify the template. So let me actually show you how to do that. Let's open a terminal. I'm going to quickly navigate to the place where I keep my projects. I'm going to zoom in so that you can also see. And let's go ahead and start to initialize our React Native project using create Expo app. We're gonna use Expo, and for that we're gonna use create Expo app. We're gonna do at latest to take the latest version of this tool that helps us initialize a new application. Then we're gonna give it a name. Let's go with Headspace. And then let's do temp-template to specify what template we want to use. And we're gonna use the blank -TypeScript. This is a very bare bones or blank type template, but has TypeScript enabled. And here it's quite important if you're following at the moment. Later on, you don't need to do that, but I'm going to add here at beta to use SDK 52. Again, if you're watching it after November, probably after mid-November 2024, you no longer need this at beta. Let me go ahead and do the following. I already have a folder Headspace, so 1 second. Okay, let me do it again. npx create expo application, at least test Headspace and the template TypeScript beta. Hello Inamul, hello Rudresh, hello Omar. Omar from Bangladesh, hello, hello. Now we're gonna wait for npm to initialize our new project. Here we see that our project is ready and it's time to open it up in our editor of choice. You can do that using the shorthand code if you are using Visual Studio Code, or more recently I started using Cursor more and more to take advantage of AI, but I'm going to stick with code because I know that you have code, Visual Studio Code, most probably, and I will stick with something that everyone has. Now here, let's go ahead and open a terminal, and before we jump into the files, let's start the development server. Using npm start, this will start the Metro server, and here I'm going to use yes. Where is the emulator? Because I had the anyway, what's going on with the simulator? Let me check. Okay, simulator is starting. It's a bit slow. I don't know why. Come on. Okay, I'm gonna put it here. And the easiest way to run an Expo project is going to be to use your physical device, download the Expo Go application that's available both on App Store for iOS and Play Market for Android. And after you download the Expo Go, you can simply scan this QR code and you're gonna have application running on your physical device. That is basically the easiest way to run an Expo project, because in that case you don't need any additional environment setup like Android Studio or Xcode. However, if you want to use an emulator, simulator, in that case, you need to go ahead and set up Xcode to use iOS simulator, or Android Studio if you want to test it on Android emulator. And if you are using a Windows or a Linux, you can do that. You can test on Android emulators. If you have a Mac OS, you can do both Android and iOS. Here I'm gonna run it on iOS simulator. I upgraded the iOS version today, so that's why we have a new start. So it's probably going to take a bit of time for the system to boot up. And then we're gonna see the application running here. By the way, while we're waiting for this emulator to boot up, I'm going to be at React Native London. Where is it? React Native. I'm going to be at React Native London conference, which is happening on 14th and 15th, if I'm not mistaken. When is it happening? Okay, here at the top it's written from 14th to 15th, which is very soon. In 2 weeks, I'm going to be in London. So if you are around, if you're in London, I'd love to meet you guys there. I'm going to be there at the conference. And actually, you can also have a 10% discount code if you decide to join using the promo code notjust.dev at the checkout. There is going to be all the Expo and React Native heroes. There's going to be Charlie, Cedric, Dan, Mark from Margello. Who else? Yeah, a lot of amazing people. So make sure to get a ticket if you're around London, or if it's easily accessible to you, and would love to meet you there, guys. I'm already going to prepare the next steps. So if we go into the guide, the next step is going to be to set up Expo Router. So let's prepare and open the documentation for installing Expo Router. And Expo Router is becoming the go-to navigation library for React Native and Expo, because it's the first file-based navigation system for mobile. And if you have experience with Next.js or other file-based navigation systems, Expo Router is going to make a lot of sense to you. If not, also, like, it's not too complicated, because what Expo Router is doing is we as developers create files and folders. Expo Router look at this structure and it creates screens that we can automatically navigate to. So it's built on top of React Navigation. It's taking all the benefits of React Navigation. And on top of that, it simply helps us configure our navigation stacks and our navigation trees. On top of that, it adds a lot of other benefits. And from Expo SDK 52, I think Expo Router, we are using Expo Router v4, right? Let me check. If I'm gonna look in the package, we have Expo 52, and we're gonna see in a second what Expo Router version we're gonna have. I have to create a video on all the new changes from Expo SDK 52. Like, it's huge, like this release, so many good things, DOM components. The Expo video is public, Expo audio is in beta, Expo image version 2, like that's just some of the things that I can see here. I didn't have a lot of time to look in depth into it, but from what I see, like, it's crazy. Okay, so finally our iPhone has loaded, and in a second, if we press I here in our development terminal, we see that we are going to install Expo Go on iPhone 16. Hello, Omara, how are you doing? And what we see here on the device is our Hello World application, our empty project that simply renders a text in the middle of the screen. What we see here in the terminal is the bridgelet mode is enabled, and in React Native 76, which we are using, starting from 76, the bridgeless mode is going to be enabled by default. So we're going to use the new architecture by default with new projects, with new applications. This is a very huge milestone in the React Native ecosystem, and I'm very happy that we are at this stage. Now we can go ahead in our app.tsx and update this text that we see here on the screen to hello world. And if that updates automatically on the device, then everything is good so far. That means that we can go ahead and continue to the next step. And the next step is going to be to install and set up Expo Router. For that, let's open the documentation. I have a link here in the guide, and we're going to go to under manual installation. And here, let's start by installing Expo Router and its dependencies. I'm gonna go back here and I'm gonna press the plus sign to open a new terminal to leave a Metro bundler running, but in another one, I'm going to install Expo Router, React Native Safe Area Context, native screens, Expo linking, constant, status bar, and so on. Let me check the package.json, and we're gonna see that Expo Router now is version 4 and is the preview version. Okay, good. Let's see what else we need to do. We need to change the entry point in our package.json to point to Expo Router. To save it now, our project entry point is the Expo Router entry point. So package.json under main, let's change it to Expo Router/entry. We need to add the schema under app.json, and this is used for deep linking. Let's go ahead and add here schema, and let's call it my Headspace. I don't know. Expo Router automatically creates and configures deep links for us. So that's why we need to set up the schema. And if we need to run our application on web, we are going to install these two libraries. So let's go ahead and run it in the terminal, install React Native Web and React DOM. And this is done automatically. We don't have to do anything. And here as well, this is done automatically. We can just check it. I don't even have a file. So I think everything is good on this end. Now all we have to do is go back in our where Metro is running, press Ctrl+C to stop the development server, and then start it again, but this time let's give it --. let's give it npm start dash dash space dash dash clear to clear the cache. Now all we have to do is reload. And here we should see the entry, the welcome screen from Expo Router. We see this Expo screen whenever we did not set our app directory. App directory is very important from Expo Router because that's where it will look for the code for our screens. We can create it either in the root folder, or I like to keep everything in the source folder. So let's go ahead and create the source folder ourselves, and let's go ahead and create inside it the app folder. Besides the app, in the source, we're going to have other folders such as components. I'm going to create them now so that we can see easily the hierarchy that source has the application. Now in the app folder, as I said, that's where Expo Router is going to look for screens. The first screen that it will look for is the home screen or the index.tsx. If we export here, export default function home screen. If we export here a component and render something, that is going to be the screen that is going to be rendered by default when we open our application, or when we navigate to the / URL on the web. So if I'm going to reload now, we should see home screen at the top. And if we go ahead and open the Metro bundler and press W here to open it in web browser, we should see the home screen text when we navigate to the / or when we navigate to the home screen of our application. If we go ahead and change it to something else, we're going to see that Expo Router did not find such a file with this name. However, if you go ahead and create a new file in our app directory with the name about, and then change this one to about screen. If I'm gonna go back on the web because it's easier and navigate to /about, we're gonna see the about screen. So that's how easy it is to create new screens. We simply create new files in our app directory, and Expo Router creates the screens and allows us to navigate there. Okay, we don't need this about screen. I just wanted to showcase a little bit more how Expo Router is working if this is the first time you're using Expo Router. If not, I think you are good and we can continue. And what I want to do at this moment is going to be, let me showcase one more step. Besides the screens that we defined in our app directory, there is also a specific file called _layout. That is a quite important concept. Let's go ahead and start by exporting export default function root layout. We're going to export a component. Let's simply start by returning null. If we return null and then reload our application, we should see empty screen. So what's up with this layout? This layout is the shared UI elements, is the component that is going to be rendered before every single screen in this directory. So it's the shared UI elements for a group of screens. Shared UI elements for a group of screens, think about a bottom tab navigation, where the bottom tab is going to always be there, always be visible, and when we move between screens, only the screen on the top moves, but the bottom tab is part of the layout, is part of the shared UI. So that's why we need these layouts. If we render null, that basically means that we are never going to render the screen, because we stop here. We first go into the layout, and then the layout specify what should render next. If we render slot, imported from Expo Router, that is going to basically mean that we are taking the screen and rendering it there, like without any additional things. Similar to how we take the children property and render the children property. However, if you go ahead and import here a stack and render a stack instead, that is going to become a stack navigator, and we're going to have a header screen. If we go ahead and expand this stack screen to have an opening and a closing tag, and then inside the opening and closing tag we render stack.screen component, and then using the name target a specific file. For example, in this case we want to target index. What we can do is we can change the configuration and apply React navigation options such as title, meditations. So if I do that and reload now, the title is going to change to meditation. Here the options is exactly the object coming from React navigation. So if you have experience with React navigation, everything that you could do with screen options and options, you can do here as well, on the screen level with options or on the stack level with screen options, for example. Okay, we no longer need the slot. We just wanted the stack to render our screens as a stack inside the stack navigator. Later on, when we add more screens, it's going to be easier for us to see how everything works between each other. Now, before we continue to the next step, I'll go ahead and remove the app.tsx because we no longer need that file. It was the old entry point in our application. Now the entry point is Expo Router, and the first file that is going to be rendered is the root layout. Let's go ahead and do a git add, git commit, setup Expo Router. And later on, you're also going to have access to the repository. No native wind, yes, native wind. That's what we're gonna do right now. Let's go ahead, and now that we have Expo Router set up, the last configuration, the last library that I want to configure is native wind, and then we can get started and build our home screen. So, native wind, let's open it up. What's native wind? Native wind, first of all, let me tell you what's Tailwind CSS. So, Tailwind CSS is a styling library for the web, which provides a bunch of utility classes. Utility classes means we write the class flex, and behind the scenes, it applies a CSS property like flex1 and so on. Text center, behind the scenes, it applies the right CSS. For example, if we want something to be rounded, we can simply send to a div the class rounded, and it's going to round the corners. And with this utility first classes, it's much easier to style, because at the same time, like, we are not focused on specific values, we can just say rounded, and it's going to make it rounded, or rounded large is going to make it a bit more rounded. So Tailwind CSS has a lot of popularity on the web, and Native Wind, what it's doing is it's bringing Tailwind CSS to React Native. That's everything you need to know about Native Wind. It's basically Tailwind in React Native. So let's go ahead, set it up, and start using class names to style our components in React Native. I'm going to go ahead in Native Wind, and for the getting started, I'm going to choose Expo Router. Let's start by installing Native Wind. For the Expo, I'm going to choose this command. I'm going to copy it, and let's go ahead here, clear everything, and run the npx expo install Native Wind, Tailwind CSS, React Native Reanimated, and React Native Safe Area Context. We see that it installed it. Let's go back to see what something else that we need to do. This is for non-Expo project, but we're using Expo, all good. Now we need to set up the Tailwind CSS configuration. To do that, we'll run npx tailwind css init. And what that will do is it will create a new file called tailwindconfig.js. This is where we configure Tailwind with the theming, the plugins, and so on. Let's see what changes we need to do. So we need to update this to include the paths to all our components. So under content, here, we're going to have to specify the path to our components. And it's not going to be up, it's going to be src. And then in the src, we're going to target all the folders and all the files that have the extension gs, gsx, ts, or tsx. So make sure if you're using the source directory to have it here as well. Let's go back. For the presets, we see that it requires native Wind preset. So under preset that is not even here, let's copy the presets line and add it up under the content. For the theme, we're not going to extend anything, plugins, nothing. Now let's go to the next step. We need the global.css file. We're going to create it in the root of our project called global.css. Here is going to be the place where we import the Tailwind CSS, like the Tailwind components, utilities, and the base Tailwind. This is just configuration. If you don't understand, just follow it. And one setup, we are going to just simply use it. It's going to be a lot easier. For SDK 50, we need a Babel preset for import source native Wind. So let's go ahead, and because we do not have Babel preset here, let's go ahead and create this file called babel.config.js in the root folder. New file, babel.config.js. If you have it, just simply add this JSX import source native Wind to your Babel preset expo. I'm going to copy the whole file and I'm going to put it here. Going back, we need also to configure metro config. So if your project does not have a metro config, we can run npx customize metro config. And this, in our case, we do not have a metro config. So let's run this command. npx expo customize metro config.js. That's going to create this file here. And in this file, what we need to do is import this with native Wind at the top. And wrap it around our config when we export it by also specifying where is our global.css file. So I'm going to copy the whole line and I'm going to replace this module export to wrap the config inside the with native Wind and specify that we are going to use the global.css file with all the Tailwind styles. That is the metro. Pay attention, the relative path, like because the global CSS is in the same directory, I'm using dot here. Going back, we need to import the CSS file inside our root layout. So in our source application layout, let's go ahead and import from one directory up, then another directory up to be in the root of the project. Let's import global.css. This is from the documentation, this is a bit different because the documentation assumes that our up directory is not inside the source directory. So that's why it has only one level up. In my case, the up directory is inside source. So that's why we need to go outside the up directory, then outside the source directory, and only then target global CSS. Pay attention to this because it's quite important. And now for the TypeScript guide. For the TypeScript guide, the last thing is the simplest method to include this type is to create a new native win-env.d.ts. So let's create this file here in the root directory. And let's add this / comment to include the native Wind types. And I think that's it. Now we can give it a try and restart our server. Let me stop it. Let me clear. Oh, come on. I cannot find, oh, here it is. And let's go ahead and do npm start -- space -- clear to clear the cache. Now if I'm going to reload, probably this is okay because we didn't use yet any Tailwind classes. But let's give it a try to see if it works. I'm going to go into the index.tsx where we are rendering the home screen. And to this text, I'm going to give a class name. A class name of font bold. And that should make the font bold. If I do text 5XL, that will be a very large text. If I do P10, that will add some padding to this text, not 10 pixels, but the 10th level of padding. If I do BG red 500, that's going to add some background. If I do color blue 500, that is going to add the color to the text. So you see how easy it is to use these class names to style them, to apply styles without having to write them manually. Yes, you need a bit of time to get used to them and to remember what's possible. And I always recommend going to Tailwind at the beginning, having tailwindcss.com open at all times, and through this quick search for the things that you want to style. For example, if you want to change the padding, just search padding, and you're going to read utilities for controlling padding. You're going to see what classes are available. For example, P0 is adding all padding 0, PX is adding left and right, PY is adding top and bottom. So you're going to slowly learn like these patterns, and soon it's going to be super easy for you to, you're going to remember all of this, and it's going to be so much faster to style these components. Another thing that I recommend is an extension for Tailwind CSS. This is the Tailwind CSS IntelliSense. And this extension, after you install it, it's going to help you with autocomplete. For example, if I do here text and something, we're going to see all the Tailwind classes that I can apply to this text. For example, text with colors, with everything. So this is very helpful even after you know the things, because you're gonna just do color blue, and then you're gonna scroll down to see like, do I need a 600 or 700? Okay, let's go with 700. So as you can see, it's super easy. So now that we have Native Wind set up and installed, we are ready to move on. I hope that you managed to set it up correctly. If you have some issues, double check all the steps from the Native Wind guide from here, from the Expo Router, because it has a lot of steps, but if followed correctly, like everything should work smoothly. This Babel preset, what it's doing is it's basically adding this class name property to all the default components like text and so on. But it's also possible, if you have a custom component, you can also create this Tailwind class name property. For that, you can look in the documentation to see how we can style third-party components. Instead of style, we can improve it. But anyway, I'm not gonna do that now. I'm going to go ahead and say git add git commit -m native wind setup. Okay, now we have everything ready. That is saying Native Wind brings so much into the React Native ecosystem just to enable you to reuse your web code into React Native. Yeah, that's true. Like if you are using Tailwind CSS on the web in React.js, it's so much easier to bring them to React Native, and it opens the doors to a lot of cool stuff. For example, GlueStack that we worked before in the previous project, that we worked with in the previous project, GlueStack is built on top of Native Wind using is built on top of Native Wind, and using that they managed to build like this really shareable components across Expo, Next.js, and so on. So yeah, like Native Wind is going to become the default styling library for React Native. I'm quite sure about that. Also because it has so much popularity on the web, a lot of web developers are coming to React Native, and it's so much easier for them to reuse the same skills that we have on the web. Will this video remain in your page for other people who can't watch it live? Yes, all our tutorials remain public on our channel. You can go ahead on our channel, make sure to go to the live section, because by default YouTube will show you the videos, but most of our content is live, so go to the live tab, check it out there. And also, while you're there, make sure to subscribe to the channel. That helps us a lot. You can also turn on the notification bell so YouTube will notify you when we go live, because we go live every single week with project-based tutorial with fun builds like this, and help you build mobile applications. Use DOM gonna enable so much too. It's going to make it easier for developers to migrate web applications to mobile and incrementally migrate it. But yeah, it's going to be powerful. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue. I'm going to close some of this stuff down, and let's see if on the web everything is working for us as well. Yes, it's working on the web as well. Let's go ahead in our guide, and the first thing that we're gonna do is then build the home screen. I have some screenshots that we can use for inspiration. We are going to be, let me see where I have them. Content here, screenshots. And this is the home screen of Headspace. So we're not gonna build it like pixel perfect. We're not gonna recreate it, but at least let's go ahead and start by rendering a list of these meditations with their components like this. Right? Let's go ahead and do that. So first things first, we're going to need some data. And before we get some data, let's go ahead and copy paste this type that I prepared for you. And in the source, let's create a new folder called types and the file index.ts. Here I'm going to paste this meditation type, and later on in a second we're going to bring some data, and that data is going to be about meditations. One meditation item is going to have initially the ID, a title, the name of it, duration, a property type, and whether it's pro or not. Based on this data, we're going to be able to render the list of these meditations. Okay, now that we have this type, let's go ahead and download this data.ts file that I prepare with some dummy data. You can go ahead, either download and you import in our application, or copy paste it if Notion opened it like this for you as well. And in the source, let's create this data.ts file and paste here this list of meditations. So it has like 5 or 6 meditations with titles, durations, and so on. Okay, now that we have these meditations, let's go ahead and import them in our application index. Let's import meditations from data. And the first meditation is going to be meditation at position 0. Meditation. Let's go ahead and try to render a meditation like a container here. I'm gonna start by rendering what? Instead of home screen, maybe we can render meditation.title. And right away, we're gonna see the title. Let's put this text in a view because the meditation is going to be inside a container. So let's put it in the view. Let's remove the background color red and maybe the color blue from this text. Maybe the padding as well. I'm going to only leave this one. Make sure to import view from React Native. And where is it? If I reload, yeah, it's going to be there. So maybe the text is not going to be 4XL, but simply XL. And maybe even more, like 2XL, you can do that as well, like it depends. The font, instead of bold, let's do semi-bold. Let's go ahead and start styling a little bit our container. So with a class name here, I'm going to start with adding some padding, like padding 5, to have some spacing inside. We can also go ahead and give it a border. If I just give border, there we go, we have a border there. If I'm going to give a margin with M5, it's going to add margin around the container. If we want the corners to be round, we can do that with rounded. Or if we want more, like rounded MD for medium or rounded XL for large. I think XL is good for us. Or simply large. Yeah, like this. And also, if we want to change the color of this border, you can do it with border.color or border.gray, for example. And colors in Tailwind, they have this pattern of going, for example, 100, 200, all the way to 900, or even 950 as well. And starting from light all the way to the dark. So we can go ahead and use something like gray 300. And it's going to have a gray color. If we want the border bigger, we can do border 2 or border 4. Border 2 will probably be good. So that's something like this. Maybe the rounded should be more, like corners should be even more round. So rounded XL. 2XL, 3XL, 2. 2 is going to be good. Maybe even more. But anyway, for now it's good. Okay, before we add more items, more elements there, what I want to do is, how are we going to render more of these containers? Well, you might think that we're going to go ahead and duplicate it over and over again. And you might think that, yeah, that doesn't feel right, because whenever we copy paste stuff, we need to think about how can we reuse things? How can we create reusable components? So what we want to do is from this container, we want to create a reusable components that we can render multiple times. For example, I'm going to create it here. In React Native, a reusable component is a simple function. Let's call it meditation list item. So a function that returns something to render on the screen is a reusable component. Now, if we want to render this meditation list item, all we have to do is call it like this, meditation list item, similar to how we would render a view or a text. We give it the name and put it in the brackets. Right here we see it. If we put it inside, if we render it multiple times by putting inside an empty fragment and copy paste it, it's going to display multiple times. But if we want to dynamically loop through an array of data, such as these meditations, and for every meditation, render one element on the screen. For that, we have a separate component called a flat list in React Native. So let's import a flat list from React Native, and instead of in the home screen rendering manually like this, the list of meditations, I'm gonna remove everything and I'm gonna simply render a flat list. Now, a flat list has two required properties: the data that we want to use, and the data should be an array. For example, in our case, that's going to be our meditations array. And then we should tell flat list how do we want to render every single item. So for every single item in our array of meditations, the flat list is going to call this function and render what we tell it to render. So if we tell it to render a meditation list item, that's what we're gonna see. 6 of these containers here. Good, but how do we send some dynamic data to this component to be rendered on the screen? We can do that through properties. And for example, a property of a flat list is this data. So that's how we send it. We give it a name. So if we want to send to the meditation list item the meditation, we're gonna give it a name, then equal sign, and here we're gonna give it a value. The value, in this case, we can take it from this parenthesis, from the function that flat list is going to call. And in that function, we're gonna receive the item. Make sure to destructure it like this with the curly brackets, and then take the item. The name is important, you cannot call it something else, it should be item. We're gonna take that item that we are currently rendering, and we're gonna send it to the meditation list item as a property called meditation. Now, on this component, we can receive that property here in the props. So we can take const meditation equal props dot meditation. And just like that, we see that the title of all of our cards is different, is the one coming from our data. And if something changes here, it's going to change automatically on the UI. Now we are dynamically sending these properties to the components. And whenever we are accessing an object property and storing it into a variable with the same name, we can simplify that by using this destructuring syntax and skipping it here. So that means that we are taking meditations from the props. And in this case, we can do that inline inside the function parameters by replacing props with the destructuring thing. So just like that, we are destructuring meditation and we are using it to render it on the screen. To make sure that we're properly typing it using TypeScript, we can do double dots here after the object and say that this property is of the type object. It has a meditation property of type meditation that we can import from these types. Basically an object with ID, title, duration, and so on. And now this meditation is strictly typed. So we can access title, but we cannot access something here because it doesn't exist on a meditation. Okay, now we no longer need to access this meditation manually. And the last thing that I want to do is I want to extract this custom component into a separate file. The rule of thumb is to keep one component per file. So let's go ahead in the source components, create a new file with the same name, meditation list item .tsx. And from our index, let's bring it here. We need to make sure to import view and text from React Native. And we need to make sure to export this function from this file so that it can be imported on the index. So I'm going to remove it from the application index, and instead I'm going to import it as meditation list item from our components meditation list item. In the meditation list item, we need to also import these types, meditation type. Yeah. Another thing that I want to tell you is usually when you create components, you'd want to put them inside your application folder like this. And you will see that it kind of works. Everything is good, but don't be surprised if something will break, because the application folder is intended to be used only for screens. So by putting a file here, that means that we created a new screen with the name meditation list item, which we didn't want to do. We just wanted a reusable component. So try to keep only the screens in your app folder and put the components in a separate folder. Doesn't matter how you call it, can be components, can be something else, but it should be outside your app directory, like this. And if you want to have path aliases, instead of importing with relative paths with this ... which in a big project can become hard to do, you can do that in tsconfig by providing here the, how's it called? Paths. And here an array. Is it an array? How is it called? 1 second, let me remember. Paths is an object, and the name is going to be how we want to start the alias. So if we start it with @ and then import anything, we want to map it towards source then anything. Or for example, if we want to import assets and anything from assets, we're going to remap it to the assets, dot assets, and copy like everything that's after assets to this path. Now with these aliases, which is basically shortcuts, we can go ahead and instead of using relative imports like this, we can do @/components, @/types, @/data, and so on. And the benefit here, you might not see it, but in big project, as I said, like you're gonna have a lot of .. And also when you move things around in the project, when you change the folders, you're gonna change the relative paths. So a lot of things will break, but with alias paths, things are going to stay easier to be changed and moved around. Now, if I reload, there was a problem, obviously. I think I need to simply restart the server. Hopefully, that's the only thing that I need to do. Let's check. Now, if I do I to run it on iOS, I don't even remember when I drank my coffee. Okay, here it is. Here we have it. Okay, so let me close everything, and back in my meditation list item, the way I manage spacings around the meditation list item is using a margin on this component. That's possible, but a better way is going to be to not add margin to a component, make it take the full space that it's given, and instead manage the spacings where it's being used. For example, here in the meditation list item, it's used in the flat list. So in the flat list, what I like to do is I like to add a content container style with a gap 5, for example, or 20. That's going to add this gap here. This content container style is the styles that are applied to the container that is wrapped around our content, our meditation list items. Tailwind, native wind provides us also with property that we can use to style it with classes. And it's called content container class name. So here, if we do gap 5, it's going to be the same. So this content container class name is the styles that are applied to the content container. And we can do here padding as well, like padding 3. And this way, like a very small benefit is that the scroll bar is going to stay at the end. It's not going to be moved inside. So yeah. And maybe the class name of a core flat list, we can do background white. I don't know. Do we want background white? Maybe. Yeah, let's do it like this. Okay, so now that we have like a basic structure for our home screen, the meditations, let me do a git add git commit home screen meditations list. Now we're going to spend a little bit more time to add some other components to this component, to the list item, such as the time. I didn't prepare the images. Maybe we can later look at them. But yeah, but before that, give me 1 second. I'm going to bring more water because I ran out of it. And we are going to continue with the next steps. So give me 1 second. I'm going to be back. All right, I'm back. How is everyone doing? How are you guys? Are you building this together with me? Or are you planning to do it later after we publish the video? Okay, so let's continue. So let's go ahead and in our data, we have the meditation duration, like the minutes that meditation has. Let's render it below the title. And we're gonna also probably use an icon. So inside the meditation list, let's render the text with meditation dot duration and then min for minutes. Okay, we already see it there. We can make the text gray by doing class name here and text gray 600. That's already better. And for the icon displayed here, we're going to use a clock. Let's go ahead and find from Expo vector icons. Let's find a clock. A clock that is closer to this one in style. Maybe from front awesome 6. Let's go ahead and try that. At the top, I'm going to import this font awesome 6 and I'm gonna render the clock here. I have Denchik around me. Okay, so we have a clock icon. Now, all we have to do is to put them in the same row. I'm gonna wrap them inside a view, the clock and the text. And with a class name, I'm gonna say that we want to render it in the same row. So with flex dash row, I'm gonna put them in the same row. And with items center, I'm going to move this text to be on the same horizontal line with the icon. And with a gap property here, we can manage the space between the two items. So gap 3 or gap 2, or given gap 1. And gap 1 can be simplified to gap or no? No, probably should be gap 1. I'm going to reduce the size of the icon to maybe 18. or even 16. And I'm going to also reduce the color of this item to gray or to dim gray or to, I don't know, a custom hex color. Where is it? Meditation list item. Okay, something like that. We can add some space between the title and this container by doing gap on the top component or maybe even on the title itself. So maybe margin bottom MB2 is going to add some space there. Yeah, I think that's good. I'm just trying to figure out if we need to make the titles bigger. It's definitely like a different font, but anyway. Should we do the check mark? To add these check marks at the beginning of them, let's try. So I'm gonna render a view. I'm gonna put this container inside a view itself, and before it, we're gonna render a view that will have an icon in the middle. The icon is going to be a check mark. Very like, probably this one will be good because it's quite heavy, and that's what we need here. Let's import font awesome from here as well. If we render font awesome 6, that's a bit, yeah, probably we need like from font awesome. And this view is going to have a BG green, maybe 500. It's going to be in the same row with our container. So on the top view, let's go ahead and give it flex row to put the icon and the rest of a body, the rest of a container in the same row. We're gonna put item center to center them on the same horizontal line like this, and a gap 3 to add some spacing, maybe even more, like gap 5, like a lot of gap, like as you can see here, like it's a lot of gap. This is good. Now to make sure that this container is expanding to take the full amount of width, we can give to this view the flex 1 property, and this is going to expand to the whole available space. And now we can go back to this icon. We have a background green. We can give some padding here, so padding 3 or padding 2 or padding 1. And we can do rounded dash full to make it a circle, so fully round. And in this case, maybe padding 2 is actually better. Or the size of icon can be 18. The color is white to this icon. Yeah, I think that looks okay. And the green is darker, so 600. Or maybe even 7. I don't know, something like that. And it's smaller, right? Padding 1. 16. No, padding 2 and 16 probably is going to be okay. Yeah, I think that's nice. See, they have like a lot of spacing, right? And spacing is something that can improve how a design looks. So I'm gonna add to this container padding on the Y, maybe double the amount that we have on the X, something like this. Maybe 8. Yeah, that's better. And on the index itself, where we have content container, the gap is also going to be increased to 8, gap 8. So yeah, that adds a little bit more room to breathe. Okie dokie. At the end of the video, if we manage, we're gonna add like images, and it's going to look exactly like here. But for now, I think we are good. We can 3x. 2x is good. I think for now we are good. We can go ahead and do git add, git commit, style of the meditation list item. Yeah, I think for now we're good. We can go ahead and move to the next step, because we have a bit more important parts coming up, especially with animations and with the audio experience to be able to play these audio meditations. And rendering the images probably is not as important as the next steps. Okay, render a list of meditations. Perfect. So as I was saying, our home screen is good for now. Let's go ahead and continue to the next step. And the next step is going to be whenever we press on one of these meditations. If we look into the design here, whenever we open one of these meditations, it is going to open, where is it? Let's do it like this. Whenever we press on one of these audio meditations, it's going to open the audio experience. This screen is going to have a player. It will allow us to play the meditation. And in addition to that, it has this really nice background that is also going to animate. These circles will slowly move up and down, will probably synchronize with your breathing. So that's everything that we're going to do in the next screen. Let's start by creating the screen for the meditation details. That is going to be a different screen. So let's start by creating a folder in our app directory called meditation. And in meditation, let's create a file, I know, details.tsx. Here I'm going to export default function meditation details. And I'm going to return a text from React Native saying meditation details. Now, on the mobile, it's a bit harder to navigate to a specific URL. We need to have like a button or something like that. But on web, it's super simple, because on web, what we can do is do /meditation/details. Where did I take /meditation/details? Well, that's our folder name, meditation. That's the first slash. And the file name is details. That's the second one. So if I navigate there, we should see the meditation details. Perfect. On mobile, we're going to do that whenever we click on one of these items, meditation items. So let's go into the components meditation list item and see how we can navigate to the /meditation/details component. We can do that if we, for example, below inside this container, after the duration, if we add here a link imported from Expo Router, is a component that allows us to link to a different page. It needs an href, similar to how we have the a tag on the web. And here we specify the URL where we want to navigate. For example, /meditation/details. And inside here, we tell the name of that link. For example, go to details. We're going to see a new text being rendered inside of this item. So if I press on it, it says unmeshed route, but if I reload the application and do that again, we are redirected to the meditation details. So with a link component, we can navigate from one screen to another. By default, the link is going to be rendered as a text, like what we send here. It's going to be rendered as a text. How can we navigate there whenever we press on the whole component, here? We can do that if we wrap the whole component in this link. So we open the link here and we close it at the end and we delete the go to details altogether. So if we put everything inside this link and if we press on it, it's going to work. But sometimes, I don't know why now it's working okay. But for example, in some cases, it's going to mess up with your styling, because what it's going to do is it's going to add one additional layer of components. If we want to prevent that, you're gonna add here as child. With as child, link is going to take the child component and use that child component without rendering additional items, use that one to handle the on-press events and the styling and so on. So the styling is going to be fixed, but if we press, nothing is going to happen. Because when using with as child, the component that you render inside the link should be able to handle on-press events. A view cannot do that, but a pressable components from React Native, which is kind of the same view, but can handle on-press events, if we replace the view with pressable and make sure the closing tag is also pressable, now the style is going to work, and when we press, the link is going to send to that on-press event and handle it through this component and navigate to the meditation details. Cool. But how are we going to know to what specific meditation did we navigate? Was it the 60 seconds of mindfulness or the 5 minutes briefing? For that, we are going to use a concept called dynamic path parameters. Part of a URL is going to be a unique identifier of the item that we want to render. For example, instead of /meditations /details, we're going to render to /meditation /123. And the 123 should be parsed and understood as the identifier of the meditation we want to render. How can we do that? With Expo Router, we can use dynamic path parameters by replacing the name of a file or also the name of a folder to the following syntax. We use the square brackets, and inside here we specify a variable which is going to be the dynamic path parameter. We can call it as we want. For example, it can be ID, it can be slug, it can be name, it can be tag, anything that makes sense. In my case, I'm going to use ID as the dynamic path parameter. Now, inside the page itself, how do we get access to that ID? We do that using the hook called use local search parameters, use local search params. We take here the ID, and if I'm going to say meditation details and here ID, let's see what's going to be rendered now. If I reload, we see that meditation details 123. If I change in the URL hello, it's going to be meditation details hello. So what we see that it's happening, everything that we have here after the meditation.slash is going to be parsed and sent to us, to the component, through use local search params with a name ID, because that's how we call it here, ID. The ID, does it tell me what it is? What's going on with my TypeScript? Let me restart TypeScript. Come on. I don't know what's going on with my TypeScript. It doesn't want to tell me, but we can also type it properly here by saying that the ID is going to be of type string. Okay. Lastly, if we press on this mindfulness, we see meditation details and nothing. Maybe I can reload meditation details. Details here, also details, because in the meditation list item component, that's where we redirect to a static/details page. Let's put this one in a brackets and change it from a normal string to a template string, so that we can replace this static part of our URL with a dynamic variable with the following syntax. And we need to put here the meditation.id, which is going to be the how we're going to link to the specific meditation. Here we see meditation 1. I can do here meditation 1. If I go back and do here meditation 2, and so on and so forth. As you can see, we are redirecting to the specific meditation item. Now on the meditation details, having this ID, usually you're gonna fetch the details from a server. In this case, what we can do is to get the details of that meditation with that ID. We're going to first import the meditations from our data, and we're going to meditation. We're gonna loop through them and find the meditation with the ID that matches this ID. But in our data, this is number, but the ID is string, so we're gonna have to parse the string to a number if we want to properly get it. Now instead of ID, we can go ahead and say meditation.title. So if I go here, we see 60 seconds of meditation. I can delete this static string altogether. 5 minutes of briefing, body scan meditation. So as you can see, the title is taken correctly. Now, what you can do is you can add here if meditation was not found, because that can be the case. You're gonna return a text with meditation not found. For example, if you go to the web and navigate to meditation/hello, you're gonna see meditation not found. If you navigate to meditation/1, it's going to be 60 seconds of meditation, of mindfulness. So that's the basic structure for our screen. We learned about creating new screens. We learned about dynamic path parameters, how to define them in our URL, in our folder and file structure. Again, this can be at the file level, it can be at the folder level, it also can work. And then we saw how we can take this data, take this parsed path parameter using the use local hash parameters. We learned how we can use the link component to navigate from one page to another, as you can see here. And that makes our basic structure for the meditation details page. What I want to do before we move to the next step is I want to go to the layout. And as you can see, if we don't provide options to a specific screen, it's going to get like the default options. The title is going to be the name of your screen. So the title probably is not going to be very good. For that reason, let's go ahead and add a new stack.screen in our layout. And for the name, it's going to be the full name, meditation, the folder name, and then the /ID, the file name. That's how we target the stack screen of this file, of this screen. And with the title can be details, for example. If I do reload and press on one of these, we see details here. But in fact, I don't want to show the title at all. So I'm gonna do header shown false. That will hide the header altogether. A bit later for this text, let me do margin top 16 just to see it on the screen. I'm gonna handle that properly in a second. But another thing that I want to change here is the way we animate the navigation to this screen. By default, it's going to be on iOS, the screen is going to come from the right to the center of the screen. But with animation property here in the options, we can say that I want it to slide from bottom. And now the screen is going to slide from the bottom, and it's going to look similar to how a model is working. And this slide from bottom animation is going to work the same on iOS and Android, while the model is only working on iOS. So that's why I decided to use this slide from bottom animation instead of using the model presentation. Because that's how it looks on the Headspace. Like if the screen has too much text input field. Binod, yeah, like the keyboard avoiding view, like it's a painful component. I'm not gonna be able to explain it right now. We actually go in depth into this keyboard avoiding view and safe area views in our upcoming course in the React Native Mastery. But you can join the waitlist at notjust.dev/React Native Mastery. And yeah, here a shameless plug to our upcoming course that I've been working for the last year, which is going to help you master React Native with Expo and with all the amazing tools, like the modern tools that helps you build applications really fast. This course is created on top of 7 different projects, and in the, if I'm not mistaken, in the multi-steps form, here we're working with forms, and that's where I go really in depth into managing the keyboard avoiding view and explaining how it actually works. So yeah, check it out. The course is launching on November 26th, so quite soon. It's going to be this month. Make sure to join the waitlist if you're interested in it. Back to our application. What I want to do is I want to add now an icon for the go back. Like as you can see here, there is an X icon on the top right corner. So let's go ahead in my details screen. And where we have return here, I'm going to render this empty tag. And inside there, I'm going to render an icon, a cross icon, an X. Close. Maybe from end design, yeah, that's going to be good. Let's import it at the top. And let's take it and render it here at top. Probably I'm going to give it a class name with position absolute. And I'm going to say I want it to be top 10. 10 pixels from the top and 10 pixels from the right 10. it's still not enough top, so top 16. I'm gonna adjust that in a second. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap it into a link, or maybe I'm going to do end design on press. The icons have these on press events, and I can call the router.goback. I'm gonna import router from Expo Router at the top and do router.back. Now if I'm gonna press on this icon, if I go here and press on it, it doesn't go back. And design on press. What? Why? I don't know why, but I can wrap it inside a link. And the cool thing about the link, also imported from Expo Router, is that I can provide relative paths. For example, I can provide // to move one layer up. So if I come here and then press on that icon, I need to do as child to make sure that we render the end design here. It still doesn't work as child href. Why? On press, let's see, console log pressed. And if I remove a link altogether, the on press of this icon doesn't work. Why? The icons were pressable. Is it because of a class name here? No, it's not clickable for some reason. Let me do... For a second, let me just try to figure out if it's class name or not. Top 100. Okay, here it's clickable. Maybe it was behind the text, you know? Yeah, so if I go back, I think I know why. I think it was simply behind the text. Because if I do here bg slate 300, you see that it's behind the text. But if I render it after I render the text, it's going to be rendered on top. So we first render the text, then we render the icon. So now it's going to be on top and it handles the press events properly. So both the options that we had before, router.back, should work like this. And the option I'm gonna delete this background. And the option with a link where we have relative path, basically go one layer up with href. So this one will also work, and it should be as child. Yeah. So it depends which one you think is better, router.goback or link. Probably I'm gonna leave router back. Use a button. No, the problem was not the button, because the end design can handle like the press events. Nice. So we have this one here. While we are still here, let me handle a little bit the safety review. We saw that we had to add this margin top 16 to the title for it to not be behind the notch on the timer, and so on. That is usually called the unsafe area. By default, our React Native view is going to expand on the whole screen because sometimes we want to render things there. For example, a background image. However, if the content that we are rendering should be rendered inside the safe area view, we can import a component called safe area view. I'm from React Native, but I'm using an additional library, React Native Safe Area Context, that we installed part of React Expo Router, I think, which has a little bit more things to it. It also gives us a bit more data, for example. So if we take this Safe Area view and render it instead of an empty tag, we're going to render the Safe Area view. In that case, we see that the title is displayed below the notch. For example, if I'm gonna go here and do this one is going to be the whole, content. It doesn't have, no. Anyway, I wanted to show you something, but I think it's pretty clear like what it is doing. Another thing is that now the same thing happens with this absolute position. We set here top 16 and right 10. Well, this only looks okay on this screen. If we're gonna render on a device that does not have a notch, on Android device, it's going to have a lot of margin on the top. So instead of that, we can use the dynamic data, the size of that notch, and add it to our margin top. So what can we do there? We can use the use safe area insets hook from React Native Safe Area Context. And this is going to give us access to bottom, which is how high is the bottom insets on the bottom of the screen, but actually we need the top of the screen. I'm going to render it right here in the title so you can see. So if I do top, we see 59. That means that the height of the notch on this device is 59 pixels. So we can use this 59 as a dynamic property here, maybe in the style, as top equal to top plus something. So because if it's plus 0, it's going to be, I'm going to remove the top class. It's going to be right there at the top of the screen. If it's going to be top plus something, plus 10, for example, it's going to be moved down. So yeah, let's do it like this. To be very symmetric on a device without a notch, we should look at the right 10 to see how much spacing that is. So right, if I do right 10, that is that 40 pixels? That's a lot. I don't think it's no, something wrong. My VS Code, I'm gonna close the VS Code and open it again. Because when I hover over right 10, it should tell me more information about that right 10. Yeah, if I hover here, we see 40 pixels. Oh, that's a lot. I don't think that's true. Right 4, that's 16. So we can do top plus 16 here. Okay, let me restart the server. And this way it has like the same right padding as the top padding on devices that do not have a notch. Reload. And if I open, okay, it's there. I can close it. Okay, perfect. Okay, so let's go ahead and do git add, git commit -m, because this is the meditation details screen. Okay, so let's go ahead and work on the user interface of this part of this screen. I'm gonna have it somewhere here on the side because it's going to be quite important. Let's start by defining the background color. So with a class name of a safe area view, if I do bg red, for example, that's going to apply the background color there. If I'm going to do flex 1, I think it's going to take the whole space. Yes. Instead of red, I'm going to use a orange 500. I'm gonna start with this one. Later, we're gonna see what color do we need. Maybe 400. Yeah. As someone was saying, like maybe the back button should not be absolute. Maybe it should be part of a header. So let's try to do that. Let's try at the top to define the header. And the header is going to be a view. And inside that view, we're gonna have the close button at the right. This view imported from React Native. So the view, the title should be below. The end design will no longer have absolute position. So let's remove the class name from end design and also the top. Like we no longer need that one. And in this case, we do not need safe area incest because we are not using absolute position elements. We are going to render them properly on the screen. I'm gonna add some margin top to the title so that it doesn't mess up with us. We need another icon to the right, which is going to be what? The information icon. So let's see in Expo icons, I for info. There is this also from end design, and I really like when I find icons from the same font family. So let's render it here. We have an info circle, and in between we're gonna have a label. Today's meditation in this case. So let's render that label, which is going to be a text. Let's see if it's going to be a text. Probably it's going to be actually a view because it has some background, and inside that view a text. For example, today's meditation. Let's put them into the same row by giving to this view that wraps around them the class name flex row. This will put in the row, and by giving items justify, or how is it called? Justify between is going to put the available space between the items. That's good. The only thing that's left is to add some padding, and it's quite considerable amount of padding. For example, padding at least 10, I think. Yeah, that's good. Okay. Let's go ahead and style this text in the middle because it's displayed with a background and has some round corners. So it can be simply done as background gray, or maybe slate is a bluish. Gray is also bluish. I'd like this zinc because zinc doesn't have a bluish tint. So zinc 900. And for the text, I'm gonna give it class name text white, or you can do on the opposite side zinc and very light zinc like 100 or 200, something like that. I think 100 is good. I'm gonna add some padding to this container, not a lot. I'm going to add rounded corners, maybe rounded small or MD. And the text should be semi-bold, font semi-bold. I think that's nice. If we want to put the icons with this one on the same horizontal line, where we have flex row, we're gonna add items center. Now they're on the same horizontal line. Perfect. So the header is finished. Let's move on to the next part. Maybe zing 800. Yeah, I think that's better. The X icon, should it be larger? 30, 30, 28, 26, something like that. Okay, the next thing is the title of the meditation, which is here in the middle. We have it displayed here, title. Let's go ahead and do text center to display it in the center. And I'm going to do font weight or font semi-bold. And 3XL is good, probably, yeah. And what if it's going to be a longer title? I can simulate longer title by adding some words here. It's going to probably touch the borders, so that's why we say for review. Should I add padding too? So it adds some padding around it. Yep. Okay. For the color of this text, we can go with the same Zing 800. Yeah, we're just using a different font, but it's good. Next, in the middle of the screen, we have the play pause button. The play pause button, as you can see, is a circle, and inside there we have an icon. So it's going to be a view, and inside the view we're going to have an icon. For the icon, let's see if we can find from the same end design a play pause. Play. Let me filter from end design. It's not exactly what I want. I want to handle the background myself. So I'm going to use from a different class, from a different one. Let me just remember where I took it from. Font Awesome 6. And it was play, this one. And there is also pause, this one. So let's import Font Awesome 6 at the top, near the end design, and render the play or pause, depending on the state. So here, inside this play pause button, I'm gonna render Font Awesome pause. Maybe now I will render play actually. And that we see it here. Perfect. Let's go ahead and say that this view has the following class name. It has a background color, Zing 800, like our dark background. It has, look, on the parent component safe area view here, Let's say that I want the items to be centered. Or no. Maybe I'm gonna leave it like this, and on the play button I'm gonna do self-center to center itself inside the parent container. The color of the icon is going to be white, or maybe there is a color called snow, like a not so bright white. I'm gonna add some padding to this component. Padding 10. That's a lot. Padding 6. Padding, yeah, that's probably good. And I'm gonna make it fully round. So rounded, full. Rounded full is good, but I'm not sure if you can see it, but it's not actually a circle. It's more tall than, it's taller than it's wide, because the font awesome is not like a square. So instead of adjusting it with padding, I will adjust it with, I'm gonna specify the width to be 25 and height 24. That is going to make a perfect circle. You can also simplify it by only specifying the width and then doing aspect square, so that whenever you change the width to 22, it's always going to remain a square. You're not going to have to change it twice. And maybe you can do items center to put the icon in the center, and justify center to put it horizontally in the center. And now that's better. Now it's an actual circle. And you can also do pause here. And later this view will be pressable. So from React Native, I'm going to right away import a pressable so that I can replace the view with pressable. So later I can play and pause. In a second, we're going to see how we're going to align and style it in the center of the screen. But for now, I think it's good. Maybe background 700 zinc. What do you think? I think 800 is more solid. From the user interface, the last piece on this component is here, the player at the bottom of the screen. Let's go ahead and render the player, or the player footer, and this is going to be our player. I'm going to start by rendering a view. And what does it have? It has a couple of rows. The first one has some icons. So let's start with a view for those two icons. I'm going to render, I don't know, font awesome 5, like 2 of them, like this, just to double check how it looks. I'm gonna make them gray. Should it be dim gray? I want like the actual color of these icons, because it's going to change a lot. Let me pick the color from here. This is the color of the icon, so I can use it like this. Perfect. And I can do the same here. Okay, let's do class name to this view flex row to put them in the same row, and justify between to add the space between them, so they are at two different, justify between, they're at two different parts of the screen. Perfect. The whole footer player, I'm going to add here some padding as well, like a padding 5, because as you can see here, it has a lot of padding left and right. Okay. Should we try to find the exact icons, or would you like to help me? What's the first one? Share or AirPlay, or what's AirPlay? I know, help me find some of a similar icon like this. And I'm gonna find the cog item. From here it's good. So I'm gonna import another icon font class, and I'm gonna render it here, and I'm gonna change the color to this one, and I'm going to simply remove one of the play buttons. Perfect. You can use size 24 also. Size 24 where? Okay. I'm going to use this one for the first one. For the lack of a better one, let's render it here with this icon. Okay, perfect. The footer, I definitely want it to be at the bottom of the screen. But again, speaking about positioning, I'm gonna figure it out in a second. Because if I'm going to go on the safe area view and say justify between, it's going to move a footer there, but the title is going to also be, the button is not going to be in the centers, because we have header, we have title, and so on. So probably the title should go inside the header, but that means that this view is going to only be like the top part of a header. So I'm gonna put another view around our header, and I'm going to move the text inside this view, but outside the top part, something like this. And it doesn't need to be empty10, it can be empty auto. Let me think. Because this view, if I add a class name here, bg white, just to see how it looks, it's going to take only this amount of space. If I do flex 1, it's actually going to push stuff around. If I do yeah, I think the best way is with margin top there on the title. But does it move things to the bottom? Yeah, it moves things to the bottom. So that means we have here, in fact, this is going to be the header. This is going to be top part of the screen. I'm going to put the top part of the screen with a flex 1. It's going to take all the available space, but I'm going to do the same for the bottom part of the screen. So the bottom part of the screen, maybe it's going to be this footer, or in general like another view. This view is bottom part of a screen, and I'm going to do, if I do bg white, I'm going to do also flex 1 here. So this way we split the screen into the top part, into the bottom part. We have in the middle a button that has the height, static height, and the rest of the space is split equally between the bottom part and the top part. Does it look equal? Can anyone tell? I'm going to measure it with something. It doesn't really look equal, but I don't know why. But I'm gonna leave it like this because it looks okay. I'm just simply going to remove a bg white from this part, from the bottom part of the screen. And in fact, it's not equal. I don't know why. And BG white here. Oh, BG white, not flex. Come on. Now the footer itself is going to be margin top auto, so that the footer itself moves to the bottom of the bottom part of the screen. And now everything is okay. Actually, I don't really like that it's not in the center of this part. Oh boy. Is it because of the safe area view? If I put everything here in a view that is the page content, will that fix the problem? And the page content is going to have flex 1. Yeah, that fixes the problem. Because considering the safe area view, the parent component was not really okay, because on the top, like it handles differently the padding. So I put the page content here. Then we have a top part, which is now their equal amount as the bottom part, and the button is in the center of the screen. Perfect. So now we have much better structure. Let me go ahead and continue working on the UI now that our spacing and positioning of components is better. I can go ahead and work a little bit on the player itself. So here at the bottom of the screen, we can focus on this part. We have a playback indication and some text on the bottom. So in the footer, we have this view that has 2 icons. After this view with 2 icons, we're gonna have the playback indicator. A playback indicator can be a simple view in which we're gonna render another view with the following class name. It's going to have a background color, zinc, very light gray, zinc 400. It's going to have the height 2. Nice, we already see it here. Or maybe, yeah, let's leave it height 2 for now. We're gonna come back to the playback indicator in a second. Below the playback indicator, we're gonna have another row with 2 text elements that represent the current playback time and the total the time of the track. So that's going to be, for example, 0322, and another text at the other side of the screen is going to be 1314, something like that. The parent view is going to have a flex row to put them in the same row, and justify between to move them at different parts. Justify between. Now, to add some spacing around all of these elements in our footer, we're gonna have to go to the parent of this, and this view, which is this footer. So this footer is going to have a gap 3, and this adds spacing between the elements, gap 5 maybe. Why not use a slider? That's a good point. Slider. I didn't think about that. React Native. I think React Native has React Native slider. Does it have a built-in slider? I wanted to build it myself basically. But if it's built in, there is a community slider. Community slider. Good point. And it's maintained by CallStack. Nice. Okay, that's good. I think I should use a slider. I was over engineering. I was like, okay, I'm gonna build it myself, and I was about to build the slider ourselves. But let's give it a try. Let's go ahead and install the slider in our application. So thank you for the recommendation. Hopefully it's going to be a good one. Let's go ahead and use it. Check the documentation of a slider. Let's import it in our component. And we're going to render it. I know, let's take it from the documentation. And in the playback indicator, I'll render it inside that view. I'm gonna see if we actually need the view or not, but I'm gonna put it like this. Okay, so we have it. Perfect. That's good. Width should be 100%. Height 40 is 40. Why 40? I don't know. Minimum value 0, maximum value 1. That's good. It can go from 0 to 1. Minimum track tint color, that's the background, right? So background should be a light gray. Light. Or even like a transparent gray. So I'm going to use like a, maybe this gray, but add some transparency, 5.5. And no, it should be the other way around. This is the background part. I don't know why maximum track, but because it's kind of like background, foreground, I don't know. And here I'm going to remove it. And that looks okay. Now let's see how we can adjust the knob styles. Minimum value, lower limit, upper limit. Change step. Vertical. Font tint color maximum. I didn't see it. I didn't see the knob color. So once again, style. Used to style the layout. Font tint color. I think it's this one. If I use the same as here. Yep, perfect. I want to reduce the size here. 4, 3, I don't know. I don't know, maybe I can do a view here. No, it actually expects an image. Okay, we're gonna figure it out like later. It's okay even like this. And maybe it doesn't even need the view. So it's going to be slider right away. What it's going to need is some callback functions, or maybe even the value. The value is going to be taken from the progress itself. So if it's 0.5, that's going to be in the middle. But if we move it, what we want to do is let's see the docs, the callbacks on sliding start, on sliding complete, and on value change. I think one sliding complete is going to call, is going to receive probably the new value. Let's see. If I look in the console and do complete, yes, it has. If I do all the way there, it's 1. If I do all the way here, it's 0. Perfect. So that's going to be the progress, or where we're going to take or move the playback of our audio file. I think we are good now. Let's go ahead and from the UI perspective of this screen, we are more than good. Let's go ahead and commit meditation details screen UI. Now that we have a UI, let's go ahead and actually implement the logic and the audio player. Whenever we press play, I want to load and actually play an audio file, and we're going to see how we can do that. Give me 1 second, I'm going to be back and we continue implementing these features. Let me double check how we are on time. Think we are good. So yeah, I'm going to be back in a second. Hello, hello, hello. Didn't you say hi to everyone? Say hi. What are we building today? Hello. So, what is the name of a VS Code theme that you are using? I think it's Material Darker. Something like that. Okie dokie. That's the best meditation, right? Okay, so what are the next steps? And you're gonna go and sleep on the floor. Oh, I forgot my water. 1 second. Okay, so now that we have a user interface of our audio player, let's go ahead and implement the functionality of playing audio. First of all, let's go ahead and back in our Notion guide. And here I provided, you need an MP3, you need like an audio file so that we can use and work with. Here I provided you with a dummy one. Let's see if we can download it. Can I? Yeah, save audio as. And then we can save a file. And then in the assets, let's create a new folder called meditations. And here, let's bring the audio file that we just downloaded. If we play, it should be like a really nice AI generated meditation like audio file. So let's import it first in our application meditation ID at the top. We're going to import from assets/meditation/audio1.mp3, and what we need to do is we need to play this file. To do that, up until now we were using a library called Expo AV that was handling both audio and video inside Expo application. And sorry how I'm pronouncing audio, like I don't know how to pronounce it. Let me check that. I'm always struggling.
Audio.
That's hard for me. Audio, something like that. So before that, we were using Expo AV to handle both audio and video. But nowadays, Expo is migrating these two capabilities, audio and video, to two separate libraries. Expo Video was released as experimental in the previous SDK version, and in SDK 52 is going to become, it's already becoming stable. So if we look into the SDK 52 release note of Expo, we're gonna see Expo Video here. Expo Video is already stable release, and they recommend us to migrate from Expo AV to Expo Video for video use cases. For audio use cases, we still should use Expo AV for a very short amount of time, but in a couple of months, probably in the next SDK from SDK 53, Expo Audio is going to become stable. But now in 52, if we look here, we see that there is a beta release of a new Expo Audio file now in November 2024. And as I was saying, like in SDK 53, most probably this library is going to be stable and recommended, and slowly Expo AV that we used to work with is going to be deprecated. So for that reason, I'm going to go ahead and use the Expo Audio. You can press on this Learn More, or from the guide, I also have this link here to the documentation. So I'm going to show you how to use this the new Expo Audio library to manage and work with audio files. Maybe things are going to change in future, like the API and how to use it. So always make sure to open the documentation, read through it, and have it on the side to double check if it's still the same as it was when I was recording this live stream. Let's go ahead and start by installing Expo Audio in our project by running npx expo install Expo Audio. And let's go ahead and see how we can use it. First of all, it has like a config plugin where we can provide the microphone permissions. This is optional, and for us it's not needed because we're not gonna need the microphone permissions. Let's go ahead and see how we can play a sound. For that, we're gonna work with a player. Let's import the hook use audio player from Expo Audio. And then at the top of a file, we are going to say const player equal use audio player, and here we need the source. The source can be a local file, or it can also be a remote file. Did I import it correctly? Probably yes. Now, having this player, I think it's a matter of just calling play when we press on the button. So let's go to the play pause button, and on press, let's call player.play. If I do that and then press this one, it didn't work, but I think it's not done yet, right? Audio source, player.play. Am I using Expo Go? Yes, I'm using Expo Go. Player, use audio player. File, is it imported correctly? Meditations, audio. Play, doesn't work. Let's try to restart the server. npm start. And if we go here and do play, okay, now it works. I'm gonna have to reload to stop it because we only called the play method. So all we had to do is to restart the server, and now the player is working. So as you can see, the API is much simpler compared to Expo AV because we simply call a hook use audio player, provided the source, the file, and then for this player we can play, we can pause, and we can also get the status of it. For example, we can check if player dot playing, then call the player dot pause. Otherwise, call player dot play. Now, if I'm gonna do play, it's gonna start. If I press again, it's gonna pause. And we can do the same for deciding what icon to display. If player dot playing, then render pause icon, otherwise render play icon. So now it doesn't update because this player.playing, the player here, I'm not sure, maybe in future is going to change how it works. I understand why it's happening because player is basically when the data of a player changes, it's not going to re-render our component because a lot of things are changing on the player side and it doesn't make sense to re-render every time. But changing the icon involves a re-render. What we should do is we should get the status of a player doing use audio player status hook imported from Expo Audio. We're gonna give a player there. In here, status, we can take if status.playing, then render the icon, otherwise the play. Now it's going to change because now the use audio player status is going to re-render the component when the status actually changes. And this status is basically the same. It will include the same player, but it's going to be, let me check what the documentation is saying about this. Returns audio status. You give a player and it gives you audio status. And the audio status has current time, duration, if it's buffering, if it's loaded, if it's playing, and so on. Perfect. So we can play, pause, pause. We see that the audio status has also this current time. Let's take this current time and render it here as status.current time. If I do that, we're gonna see that it changes, but the current time is in milliseconds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a helper function called format seconds. It's going to receive a milliseconds parameter, and based on them, we're gonna have to display properly like the seconds. I'm gonna spend a lot of time here. Let me bring in some code. So we take these milliseconds, we divide them by 60,000. Basically, we divide it by 1,000 to transform it to seconds. Then we divide it by 60 to transform it to minutes. And then we take the whole value, and that's going to be how many minutes have played. For the seconds, we take the remainder and divide it by 1,000, not to look at the milliseconds, but at the seconds. And then we simply display minutes and then seconds. Using pod 2, we're gonna display 0 at the beginning if the seconds is below 10. Now we can take this function format seconds, wrap it around our status current time, and it's going to display nicely the time. For example, 0.005, 006, 7, and then 10. Perfect. We can do the same for the second part. Yeah, but this time we're going to take the total, the duration. And the duration we see here 4, because that's the duration of our audio file, 4 minutes. Okay. Thank you. So we're displaying the time. We're displaying that one. Now the value of a slider, I would like to move it as the audio file is playing. The value we said that goes from 0 to 1, where it basically means 1 is finished, 0 is just starting. So we can take the value by dividing the current time of a status and divide it with the total amount of duration. So if we do that and play, we're going to see how the slider slowly moves to the right. Okay, that's good. Now the point is, if we move a slider, I would like to also move a player. The player, moving the slider will call this function on sliding complete and will give us a value between 0 and 1. And what we should do is we're going to use player and we're gonna seek to, which means move the current playing position to this seconds. And I don't think it's actually seconds, I think it's milliseconds, because we can take the value, which is from 0 to 1, and multiply it by the duration. And that will work as a percentage base, because if we press in the middle, the value is going to be 0.5. And 0.5 multiplied by 4 minutes is going to seek to the 2 minutes mark. If it's 1, if we seek there, 1 multiplied by 4 is going to be 4. So that's how we get there. So 0 to 1 works like a percentage wise. Now if I reload and play and drop it here, yeah, we can see that the time changes. At the end is very slow. At the beginning it's this one. So you can see that it actually works. For a millisecond it jumps back because the value is still the previous one. But it's good. I think it works nicely. Amazing. So that is basically our whole audio player functionality. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do git add, git commit -m, and this is Expo audio player using the new Expo Audio library. Perfect. Okay, our application is shaping up. And the cool thing about this is that now for testing purposes, we've used a local file that we added here in the project source code. But in the real world, you won't do this because by adding files to your source code, by bundling them in the application, is going to increase the size of the application. So you don't want to shape like a couple of gigabytes of the application size to be a couple of gigabytes. The Expo Audio source can be a remote source as well. So you will put the files on a server somewhere and then give a remote URL to Expo Audio, and it's going to fetch them from there. So let me find here use audio player to see the documentation of it, source, and the source is audio source, which is type string or null or object shaped as below. The object shaped as below is the URI. So if you are fetching it from a remote, you're going to do audio player and here URI remote audio file. Is there like audio URL for testing? Developers Google. Alarm. This is an alarm. So I found a URL. Let me see if it's going to work. So if I do this here with a remote file and go here, probably still buffering. Zero, 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 zero here. Let me do a console log status to see what's the status with this remote audio from Google. So status is buffering, false, is loading false, loop false, mute false, playback, playing forward, false. This is an MP3. Let's try an MP3. Maybe the format, okay, this one works. So I'm not sure what was going wrong with this .ogg. Maybe someone else knows, but another file that I used there was actually working properly. Like this one that I found. So yeah, if you have remote files, you can do that with URI. I'm going to go back to the local file. Yeah, perfect. So yeah, you can run both remote and local files as well. Okay, so I see a question. What is RevenueCat? I think it's time to get into the subscriptions and RevenueCat. And we're gonna leave animations as a cherry on the top at the end to implement the animated background. And let me just show you what I mean by that animated background. Let me try to run it here in the example and you're gonna see how it will look. Maybe I'm going to do it with, let me. Okay, so here it is. I don't know why it's not full screen. Okay, here it's full screen. But at the end, we're also going to add animations. And as you can see here, the background of this screen is animated. We have multiple layers. They all are moving at their own pace. And when you actually do the meditation, it's a nice experience because it kind of synchronizes with your breath. it goes up and down. So we're gonna cover that at the end, but before that, let's go ahead and implement the subscriptions and the paywall in this application. Because as I was saying, applications like Headspace and Calm, I use them as a really good resource to think about like a very good use case for the subscription business model of mobile applications. These guys are generating millions with in-app subscriptions, and they basically they are using a freemium model where they offer a bit of the application, like some content, some meditations for free. And if you want to unlock the whole experience of application, you can do that only by subscribing. We are using a paywall, and after paying a subscription, you can get access to the rest of the application. And previous week, we implemented an e-commerce application, and then we integrated with Stripe, a third-party payment provider. Someone was asking me, can you use Stripe to manage payments in the application? And for that use case, it was fine to use Stripe, and Apple and Google would be fine, because previous time we were building an e-commerce application where you are paying for real products, for products outside your application. In e-commerce, you are buying some shoes, you want to pay everything and all the money to go to the seller. In that case, it's perfectly fine to use third-party payment provider. However, whenever you are paying in the application for something that is going to be consumed in the application, let's say unlocking new content, unlocking new features, whatever the payment will be, a subscription, a one-time payment, that payment must go through the stores. It must go through Apple if you're launching it on App Store. To iOS devices, it must go through Google on Android devices when launched on Google Play. That's because they are the platforms and they decide the rules. And the thing is that they are taking 30% cut from your subscription, from your revenue. During the first year, and with some conditions, this can be reduced to 15%, but in general, it's 30%. Is it good? Is it bad? It's not for me to decide. But the thing is that we cannot do anything about it. We cannot go around it whenever we are selling something in our application, whenever we are offering a subscription to additional content, additional features of the application. We have to use that, and we have to say thank you for the platform that Apple and Google are providing for us, for mobile applications and mobile developers. Anyway, if the payments should be handled by Apple and Google, where is RevenueCat standing in this infrastructure? Well, RevenueCat stays between your application and Google, Apple, Stripe, and any other platform. So with RevenueCat, we are connecting RevenueCat to Apple, we're connecting it with Google, we're connecting it with Stripe, and then our application, we simply connect it to one single API, to the RevenueCat API, and we can do that in a much simpler way, having one single source of truth for the subscription data. RevenueCat is going to route the payments to the Apple or Google on Android. So at the end of the day, the payments are still going to be charged by Apple and Google. You're still going to pay them 30%, but RevenueCat is going to help you manage these subscriptions, manage the data about your customers, see all the data in one common dashboard instead of having to go through Apple and Play Store and then aggregate all the data into one single view. You can look at all of this data in a much better way with better analytical tool in one single dashboard on RevenueCat. And besides that, you can build the paywall with RevenueCat. You can run A/B testing without having to rebuild and send a new bill to the stores. So RevenueCat stays between Apple, Google, and other platforms, maybe even Stripe, and your application, and simplifies the management of user subscriptions. So if that's clear, let's go ahead and start using RevenueCat in our application. I wanted to get into the implementation phase, but Coder's Lo-Fi is saying that there is web as well, and you can avoid 30% cut as Spotify is doing. Web is there in RevenueCat. That's true. As you can see, RevenueCat connects, besides Apple Android, it connects with Stripe and web as well. So with some tricks, you can go around Apple and Android, but yeah, these are some tricks. And as Coderis is saying, Spotify is doing that, or Amazon is doing that. For example, if you're buying an audiobook, you have to go to Amazon and buy it there. You cannot buy it through the application. So the application is just used for the consumptions. So there are some ways. The thing is that you cannot advertise in your mobile application that the user can go and pay on the web. That is against the policies, and that if you in the application say unlock this post and you redirect the user to the web for the payment, in that case your application is going to get down. If in the application you never mention about it, and somewhere on the web you have a checkout, you get the people from the ads, they pay on the web, and when they open application, all of a sudden they have access to that content without you advertising it in your application, that is the way to go around it. But I'm not a super expert in that, so you need to be careful when implementing this stuff, because Apple and Google are very specific on what you can do and what you cannot do with in-app subscriptions. That's why today we're going to use Apple subscriptions. We're going to connect them with RevenueCat. We're going to use RevenueCat paywall. We're going to display the paywall. We're going to display a similar paywall in our application, and we're going to handle the subscription using RevenueCat and Apple. For that, you actually have to build the application for production and submit it to App Store. You don't have to submit it publicly, but you need it on the App Store, because on App Store, we're going to create the subscription products. We're going to set the pricing, we're going to set the introductory offer, and so on. Because we are limited by time, I don't have time to build this application and deploy it to App Store. It usually takes at least an hour to do that, and it involves a lot of waiting. So for that reason, I recommend you check out the documentation of EAS, because with EAS you can easily build and submit the application to the store. In my case, I'm going to go to App Store and I'm going to reuse an application that I already have on the App Store. So after you submit the application to the App Store, you're going to have it here. This application is not published, it's in the prepare for submission, but it's uploaded there. And that will allow me to go down here under monetization, under subscriptions, and create subscription products that later I can use in RevenueCat. If you also already have an application on App Store or Google Play, you can reuse that as well for the testing purposes. However, if you're building this application and want to actually submit it, or if you're using this as a tutorial to learn how to integrate it in your application, then the first step would be to go ahead, build and submit the application to App Store and Google Play before moving on. Now, if you have that submitted, we can go ahead and start configuring our subscriptions on App Store. So on App Store, as I said, we're going to go to App Store Connect. We're going to go to our applications, and we're going to open the page of our application. I'm going to reuse this testing application that I have here. We're gonna scroll down until we get to the monetization, and here we have the subscriptions. By default, you're not gonna have any subscription groups, and we have to create one. To create one, we're gonna press on this plus sign. And a subscription group is, let's call it Headspace Pro. Apple is using subscription groups as a way to group multiple subscription products, and it will enforce that the user can have only one subscription from that group. So for example, you can put in this group a yearly and a monthly subscription, and if the user has the monthly and then buys yearly, Apple will automatically remove a monthly because you can only have one subscription from a group. Now that we created the subscription group, we can go ahead and create the actual subscription products, things that the user will buy, will subscribe to. Let's go ahead and under subscriptions, let's go ahead and create. The reference name, let's call it monthly, and based on here, like what, monthly, $12.99 and 7-day trial. I'm looking at the actual example from Headspace. So monthly, monthly 12, let me see. The reference name will be used on App Store Connect and Sales and Trends Report. It won't be displayed on the App Store. The name can be longer. Okay, this is only internal. This is not going to be seen by user. So monthly, $12.99, 7 days trial. Product ID is how we reference products. It should be unique, and it should be unique across your account. So usually we're going to, I think RevenueCat is recommending how to do it, but for example here, this is a structure, a recommendation. You can do anything that you want, but I'm going to do here Headspace, name of a product, then the price, which is going to be $12.99, basically $12.99, period, not 1 year, but 1 month, and then it's going to be free trial. So 1 week for 0, 1 week for 0, 7 days trial. Let's create this subscription. Here we're gonna configure information about subscription. For example, the duration is going to be 1 month. Availability, we're going to select where, in what country this is available. Let's select all countries and do done. Next, we're going to get into the subscription prices. Let's press add prices, and we're going to choose the price in United States. We're going to go with $12.99. Next. This is going to automatically recalculate for every single country in their own currencies. You can leave a default, or you can go and change like specific items how you see fit. I'm gonna leave a default and do next and confirm. Now we should have subscription prices, and we need to provide informations for this subscription all the way until we do no longer see missing data on the status. If it's missing data, we're not done yet. That means we're gonna scroll down under localization. We're gonna add a new localization, which is going to be, this is information that the end user will see. For the display name, let's do Pro Monthly or Headspace Pro Monthly. Maybe Headspace Pro, and here in the description, monthly. Access to Pro features. Now let's press add. And we have a localization for English. It's going to be used for every other language if not provided, but you can provide localization for every single language if you want. Image is optional, and as we can see, we're still in missing metadata. Even if we save, it's going to be missing metadata because we have to provide a screenshot of a paywall. So we'll only use this screenshot for review. It won't be displayed on the App Store. This should be a screenshot of a paywall where we display this information. I don't have yet a screenshot of a paywall, so if you're going to come back later here and update it, but for now I'm going to simply take a screenshot of my application like this, and I'm going to use it and paste it here. Review notes is also something that you have to provide. Additional information about your subscription that could help us review it. This subscription gives access to, you describe more for people who will review your application to make it easier for them. So more info about the product and how to test it. Let's press save. And with this, we still have missing metadata, but I think it's not from here. I think the missing metadata probably is not from the subscription itself, but if we go back one layer to the subscription group, there is missing localization metadata. So the localization for the whole group. Let's go ahead and do here Headspace Pro. Create. Now if we create this localization, we see that the subscription itself moved into the ready to submit. A very important step. Without the status being at least in ready to submit, we're not going to be able to fetch this data in our application. So now that it's in ready for submit, we can go ahead and move to the next step. And our next step is going to be to create another subscription plan for the yearly. So the annual here is $69.99 and 14 days free trial. Let's press plus to create a new subscription in this group. The reference name is going to be annual $69.99. Is that true? Yes. And 14 days trial. Product ID. Let's reuse what we had there. We had Headspace for the name. We had here you need to provide, this is actually, you can specify anything that you want here. This is just a recommendation how you can structure it so that it is going to be easy for you. $69.99. This is 1 year and it has 2 weeks for free. 2 weeks for $0. Okay, now let's go ahead and choose the subscription duration to be 1 year. Availability is going to be all countries. Price is going to be, come on, $69.99. I'm going to accept all the default prices for the rest of the regions. And localization here is information what user will see. So Headspace Pro, annual, and access to all Pro features for a year or something like that. Let's do add. And if we save, it's still not going to be ready to submit because we need the screenshot and the review notes. Again, for the screenshots, come back later with the screenshot of your paywall, drop it here, and here more info about the product and how to test it. Let's do save. And now it's the state is in ready to submit. Okay, now we have these 2 subscription products in our application on Apple's App Store Connect. And we are ready to go ahead and connect them to RevenueCat and then use them in our application to subscribe a user to these products. Hello, Daniel. Daniel is reminding everyone that you guys have to be subscribed to the channel. We're looking into our analytics quite often, and we see that more than 99% of people watching this video are not subscribed to the channel. And I'm pretty sure you might think that, hey, this is kind of weird, and for me it's the same, and I'm not using it as a bait. Let me actually go into the analytics and show you this data. Analytics, audience. I'm going to show you that. Look here. What do you see? Watch time from subscribers. Only 0.7% of you watching this video are subscribed to the channel. 0.7. So please, if it's not a big deal for you, make sure to subscribe to the channel. It's free, and we're trying our best to only provide you with valuable content, with project-based tutorials. And if you're enjoying this one, I'm pretty sure you're gonna enjoy our content that we're doing. So thank you very much for your support. And thank you, Daniel, for reminding that. Okay, so next steps. What are our next steps? Let's go ahead here. So we have created the group, we have created the subscription products for monthly and yearly, and we should make sure that it's in there ready to submit. Let's go on the RevenueCat and start by creating a new account. I already have one, so I'm gonna go here and log in my account. This is the test account, and I have here the sandbox data. The first thing that we need to do in our account is go ahead and create a new project. Let's press create new project and let's give it a name. Headspace for this example. This is just purely for educational purposes only, so don't release an app with the name Headspace. Probably the app is going to get down, but anyway. Now that we have created the application, what we need to do is we need to connect the RevenueCat application with an application on the store. We can do that with App Store, with Google Play, with Amazon, with Roku, and so on. I'm going to press App Store and connect it with our App Store application. We need to provide here the Apple Bundle ID, and the Apple Bundle ID, I'm going to take it from my application. If we go into App Store, App Information, here we're gonna see the bundle identifier. I'm gonna copy this one, and I'm going to put it here. Let's do save. This one is optional, but the in-app purchase key configuration is required. We can press on learn more and see the documentation. Another thing that I really love about RevenueCat is how simple their documentation, they're providing a lot of really step-by-step guides with screenshots of what you have to do. Because all of this stuff, like with Apple, with Google Play, with configurations, with keys, it's a hustle. You need to know what you're doing. So go ahead, open documentation and try to read through it or follow these guides. So this one, we need to generate the in-app purchase key so that RevenueCat can access data on our behalf from App Store about pricing, about our products. So let's go ahead in our App Store Connect. We're going to go into the App Store Connect here, and under Users and Access, we're going to go to give me one second. We're in the integrations, in-app purchases. So under Integration tab, we're gonna go in-app purchases. Here, we need to create a new in-app purchase key. Let's give it a name, Headspace app. Let's generate, and this will generate a new application key. What we have to do is to download it and then go back to our dashboard on RevenueCat and drop this file here in this section. I'm gonna simply drag and drop it here. It will auto-fill the ID, and we only have to provide the issuer ID. Back on App Store, the issuer ID you're gonna find here, copy it and paste it here. Now we can press Save Changes, and our application has been created successfully. You can adjust some configuration of it here later, and you can also do this Apple Small Business Program, which is basically the, if you are entitled for the 15% cut, you can specify here, and the analytics on RevenueCat will be we'll take that into consideration. Now that we have this application here, what we need to do is we need to configure our subscription products on RevenueCat. RevenueCat adds a couple of new concepts around subscription products. The first one is entitlements. Entitlements are in a way the subscription groups that we talked about on App Store. Basically, an entitlement represents the level of access. In most cases, application will only have one level of access, the pro access, like either you are free or you are a paid customer. In some cases, you might have different level of access. You might have free, you might have the pro, you might have gold, you might have whatever names there are. Basically, you can have different levels that gives you access to different entitlements, like different features, different content, and so on. So that's what we do here. We create an entitlement, we put a subscription inside an entitlement, and then when we want to unlock a feature, we simply check, is this user entitled to this feature, or does this user have an entitlement gold or pro, without us having to worry about, is he subscribed to monthly, to weekly, to yearly, is he coming from App Store or Play Store, without having to worry about all of this. We are simplifying it to one simple question: is he entitled to the pro access, is he entitled to the gold access, and so on. So let's go ahead and create the entitlement that we're gonna use, and we're gonna call it Pro Access. Pro Access to all features. Let's add it. Now, entitlement needs products, and the products is in the product catalog is the next one here. Basically, products are individual in-app purchases you set on the stores. This is a one-to-one mapping between RevenueCat and App Store or Google or Stripe and so on. So to create one, we go ahead, press on the new. If we have an Android application, we're going to be able to select it. For now, we only have the App Store. And if you provide there a key on the configuration, you can fetch them, or you can provide here the identifier that we set here in our App Store. Applications. Application under subscriptions. Under the Headspace Pro, we have the monthly, and the product ID here is this one. I'm just gonna copy and paste it here for the identifier, and the display name is going to be in monthly Pro or Pro monthly. Let's create the product. We can do the same. While we're still here, we need to associate it with an entitlement. We need to link the product to an entitlement. So let's go ahead. How do we do that? I think it's going to be back on the entitlement. Under Pro, we are associating products here. So we are attaching the monthly to this entitlement. But I think I need to add a new product before. So let's go back to the products to add the annual subscription as well. So on App Store, this is the ID, and it's Pro Annual. Create product. And probably after creating both of the products, we can go back to the entitlement, and under the pro entitlement, we're gonna attach a new product, which means that the user should have either of this product to be entitled to pro features. So the pro entitlement has this product. So if you have at least one of this product, you're going to be entitled to pro. And it's going to make a lot more sense when you add here the Android subscriptions, or if you have monthly, quarterly, annual, weekly, and so on, and you do a lot of A/B testing and you have a lot of them. By simply connecting them here, you can simplify how you check if a user has access or not. Now that we have products and entitlements, let's go to the offerings. And offerings is basically what do we show on the paywall. And offerings are a way for us to remotely change what do we show people on the paywall. Because we might have a lot of products, we might have weekly, monthly, annual, and we might test some things. Today we might show weekly and annual. Tomorrow we might show monthly and annual. In a week we might decide like maybe we should just display the annual and that's it. And when doing this test on the paywall, we don't want to rebuild and recode all of the paywall logic itself. What we do is we create different offerings, and from RevenueCat dashboard, we just simply decide which offer we have a default or which offer we are displaying in the application. So let's go ahead and create a new offering called default. You can also have like a sale or something like that. Let's create the default offering. Default offer. You can provide metadata like, I don't know, title and so on, but I will simplify it and just do save. And when we have an offering, you need to add here packages. So let's go ahead and go inside this offering, and under packages, we are going to create a new package. A package is one level or a layer or like a group from different markets that has the same duration. For example, monthly is going to the monthly product. The monthly package is going to have the monthly product from App Store and the monthly from Android. Back in my offerings default here, we're gonna have another package. The next package is going to be annual, and this package is going to have the annual product from App Store and from Google Play. Because we only have App Store, now it's just a one-to-one mapping, but in fact it's a one-to-many mappings. We are using like on App Store, on Play Store, on Stripe, what are the products that have the annual duration. Okay, now we are done. So if we look into the entitlements, the Pro entitlement has two products. If we look into the products, we have two products with both of them assigned to one entitlement. And if we look at the offering, we have the default offering with two packages. And if we look at the packages, we have a monthly package and the annual package, both with one product. So make sure you have these numbers. Nothing is zero, because it's going to be important in the next step when we install and use it in our application. Because right now we are finished with setting up RevenueCat products and connected them with Apple Store products. The next step is going to be to go ahead into the monetization tools under paywalls, and we can create a remote paywall. Let's go ahead and press here add paywall, and RevenueCat has a lot of pre-built paywalls for us that we can adjust and also configure remotely. Which one do we like most? Which one is closer to this one, to the actual one? Probably this one. Let's select this one. Or whichever you like most. And in the paywall editor, we need to provide some data. For example, the tier name. What's going to be the tier name? This one is, oh, it has standard and premium. This is like different tiers, right? Maybe I should change the template. Like this one is standard and premium. I'm going to go with a simpler one. Let's go with this one. It has an option to choose annual or monthly. Let's choose this one. And here, let's go into the localization. The image, you can provide here an image. I'm going to leave it by default. Main content title. What's going to be title? Unlock Headspace Pro. You can provide colors and so on. Under features, you can provide different features. Unlimited meditations. The icon, you can choose an icon here. Can add another feature, I don't know, 10 audio tracks and so on. Like you get the point. Everything. Now, after you add the features, you can provide the colors for the icons. Then under the packages, here is where you can specify what packages we show. So the package one is going to be the monthly, and we can add another package to show the annual package. As we can see, it already has the data $4.99, $39.99. The default package, we're gonna pre-select the annual maybe, and the package name is going to, you can specify how do you want to show the name of the package. Offer, product name, or so on. The package details, here you can provide more information about full access to Pro experience and you can also press on this button add variables to specify the price per period, for example, full access to Pro for $4.99, for $39.99, and so on. And you can do more information that you need here. Call to action, that's going to be our button. Let's do continue. And footer links, you can provide terms of service and privacy policy. That's important. And also a restore button. And close button only if you want. Now that we have provided the default information, let's go ahead and press create paywall. And later we can come back and adjust this information remotely without us having to rebuild our application. Okay, now our paywall is ready as well. It's time to go ahead and install and initialize the SDK in our application. So from the guide, the next step is going to be to install the SDK. If you go into the documentation, there is this install SDK guide, and there are SDKs for a lot of platforms, but we're interested in React Native, and specifically in React Native using Expo, option number 2. So what we have to do is we have to install React Native purchases, which is, let me check if git status. Okay, So first things first, we install React Native purchases. This is the core of RevenueCat, which allows us to handle, manage subscriptions, subscribe users, get information about them, like everything from the core, but it doesn't have like the remote paywalls. The remote paywalls are provided by React Native Purchases UI. So this UI is going to give us the possibility to display paywalls without us having to build or code the paywalls in our application. And it's going to be very helpful. It's going to allow us to render the paywall that we configured here, and it's going to look like this. Okay, now that we have React Native Purchases and Purchases UI, the thing is that purchases, if we look at Expo purchases, we're going to see that in-app purchases libraries require configuring custom native code. Native code is not configurable when using Expo Go. At the moment, our application is running in Expo Go. Expo Go is only recommended for small projects, for small proof of concepts, for development projects, but sooner or later, you're going to need custom native code. In the past, let's not talk about the past. Nowadays, you can create a development build, which basically means your own version of Expo Go, your own application, and run the application there. To do that locally, I'm going to do npx expo pre-build, and I'm going to just do enter. This is going to ask me, it's going to create the iOS and Android directories, but I don't know why it didn't ask me for the package names, because the package name should be changed. In my case, the package name should be the same as the package name on App Store. For you, it wouldn't matter, but for me it matters because I need to link my application with this one that is already published. So I need to use the same package name as here, like the same bundle ID. But it's not a problem because I can go into the app.json, and here under iOS bundle identifier, I'm going to manually change it here. You don't have to do that, by the way. And for Android, the same. And now all I have to do is do pre-build, maybe -- clean, so that it will remove and recreate these projects, the iOS and Android. So the npx expo pre-build is looking at the configuration of our project and is generating the native side projects for iOS and Android, these two folders. Then we can go ahead and run npx expo run iOS, and this is going to run our projects, build our iOS project, and run it on the device from the custom development build. So we see it's planning the build, and it's going to build it locally. For this to work, you need Xcode for building it for iOS, and to build it for Android, you need Android Studio setup. If you don't have that, you can also use EAS to create these builds remotely in the cloud. EAS development build. Create a development build. So locally, it's npx expo run Android or iOS. Remotely, you can use that with EAS. EAS, you first configure it, and then you do build profile development for iOS or Android. While this is building, this usually takes like 3 to 4, maybe 5 minutes. Let's see what are the next steps in configuring the purchases SDK in Expo. Yeah, I think I don't need to do, okay. We can go ahead and import purchases from React Native Purchases. we're going to do that. We need to configure the purchases, and we're going to do that in the root layout. So in the application underscore layout, that's where we're going to import purchases, because this is the entry point in our application. This root layout is going to be rendered always when we launch the application, no matter on what screen we are. So with these purchases, we can go ahead and initialize the SDK. Let's go ahead to the next documentation, configuring the SDK. And we are going to look at initialization. I'm going to choose here React Native. And we see to initialize, we just have to call purchases configure and provide the API key. So let's do that when we launch the application. When we launch the application, we're going to have a use effect that will have like empty dependency here. Now, let's go ahead and call purchases set log level. That's the first thing. Set log level debug. That's going to provide us a little bit more logs to debug if something is not working properly. The next function we need to call configure, and we need to provide a different API key depending on the platform. If it's iOS, if it's Android, or if it's Amazon or something else. First, let's go ahead and create an environment file where we're going to store environments for our project. We're going to prefix them with Expo public because we need access to this API key from our client side. Back in my documentation, under my application, under project settings API keys, we have the app specific API key. This is the public API key. We can use them to configure RevenueCat SDK for our client side and web applications. So let's go ahead and do show key, and this is going to be the Apple key. RevenueCat Apple key. And we're gonna use this value here. Let's go ahead and back in our layout, I'm gonna copy this code from here, just show you in my editor. I'm gonna comment out this await. What's going on here? Okay, API key here. I'm gonna replace them with simple strings because it messes up stuff. And instead of doing this way of if platform is iOS, can call this configure. If it's on Android, call this configure. I'm going to also do platform, but I'm going to do platform.select, which is a way for me to provide different values for different platforms. For example, on iOS, the value is going to be this one. On Android, the value is going to be process.env.expo public, and maybe not Apple, but Android, and so on. So this platform select is going to return us the value depending on the platform. So if we're running on iOS, it's going to give me this one. So let's call it API key equal to platform select. Now, instead of doing these if statements, we can simply call purchases.configure and here provide API key. And we selected the right one, either iOS or Android, at the top. Okay, now while we have configured the purchases SDK with our API key, our application has been built, and we see here open in Headspace, no longer open in Expo Go, but in actually Headspace in a separate application because we have created a development build. We see that invalid API key because we have to restart the project. We have new environment variables. Let's stop the development server and let's do it again. npm start -- clear. When we start the development server, it's going to say here using Expo Go. By pressing S, we're going to switch to using development build. And now I can do reload here to reload my application from running in my custom development build called Headspace. Let's see what's going on there. Reload, or press I to run it on iOS. Come on, what's going on? Use effect. Is this the problem? Are you the problem? Who is the problem? iOS. Reload. Headspace. Come on. No script URL provided. Make sure your package is running. Was it a different... Let me press I here. Opening. No script URL provided. No script URL provided. I think it was running on a different port. And that's the problem. You know what? Anyway, switch to development build and do I. Come on. Reload. Reload. Why don't want? Probably I have to rebuild it for some reason. But what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to rebuild it and run it on my physical device, because in the next step I'm going to test the purchases and they should run on a physical device. So let me go ahead and run. Where is it? I'm going to stop the server. I'm going to kill this terminal, and I'm going to do npx expo run iOS -- device. Let me close some other development server that is running, not to mess with this one, and I'm going to select my physical device. It's planning the build. If you have some issues with signing, go ahead and open the iOS folder in Xcode and make sure you select your development team. I had that while preparing, but now it seems that it worked correctly. And we're going to wait for the application to build for my physical device. While that is happening, give me 1 second. I'll take a very, very short break and we come back to finish the paywall. Okay, this one is still building, right? Okay. It's loading. It's using development build. Okay. 1 second. It's downloading 35%. Will it work? Now the goal is not to touch anything and to show you this one. Okay, so this is my phone displaying the application. So now that we have configured it, all we have to do is we have to call the purchases. When we press on one of these items, it's not showing. Let's go ahead in the meditation list item. When we press on one of these items on this pressable, instead of navigating right away there, let's check if it's pro or not. So I'm going to have here a const on press. Let's do if the meditation is not pro, then we're gonna simply do router imported from Expo Router dot push, and we're gonna push him here. With this approach, we no longer need the link, and on the pressable, on press, we're gonna call this function. So if the meditation is not pro, we're gonna simply navigate there. Otherwise, verify subscription. And if it's not subscribed, go ahead and show the paywall. To show the paywall is quite simple. We're going to import something from purchases UI, and specifically we're going to import the paywall. And we're going to simply call paywall dot present paywall, and that's it. That should automatically show the paywall for when we click on the pro meditations. Let's give it a try. Because everything is working, I just want to show you. Yeah, but mirroring also requires connectivity. So look, the first items, they are not pro, so they are going to simply redirect to this page. But if I go to one of these items, it's going to automatically show the paywall. And here we can choose monthly or yearly, and it has exactly the data from App Store. Remember, we set like $12.99 and so on, but I'm in another country, so for me it shows in euros. So this is a different value, but it's coming directly from App Store. So what I can do is I can go ahead and subscribe to, for example, monthly. And in this case, on my physical device, I have a Sandbox account. And as you can see here, now that I'm subscribing on Sandbox, so it's only for testing. I'm going to go ahead and press subscribe. I'm going to go ahead and put the password. And as you can see, it's done. And we are going to see the subscription paid. You're all set. Your purchase was successful. And what we can do is we can probably do a wait here. And if it works successfully, redirect him to the page. If I go back to my RevenueCat dashboard, check the Sandbox data here, we're going to see that just now, I'm going to reload. A few seconds ago, there was a new subscription from this anonymous user from Spain with this amount of spend. Because he subscribed to the monthly. I think it's just, it knows that I subscribe like for other applications as well. But it's the monthly subscription and it's for $12.99. Okay, perfect. So we see that it works. Now if I'm gonna go ahead and press again here, we're still gonna see the paywall, because we are always calling present paywall. What we actually should do is call present paywall if needed. And here we need to provide the required, we need to provide here required entitlement identifier, the identifier of the entitlement. So if we go to the project, Headspace, the entitlement identifier is called pro, like this. So we need to say that we need to show the paywall only if the user does not already have a pro entitlement. And here this is a promise, so we can do const result equal await. What's going to be a result? If result dot, can we simply do the router.push afterwards here? I think we can. So now if I'm gonna press, It's going to check that I already have this pro entitlement, and it's no longer going to restrict me there. It's going to go to the next screen. It's cool because if I go ahead and from the dashboard, maybe from this customer, I'm gonna go ahead and say, hey, how do I unsubscribe him? Current offering, default, attributes, delete customer. And if I do confirm, will that delete my subscription? Let's see. I'm gonna go ahead and reload the application and try again to go here. We're gonna see that we are restricted by that. And actually, we should not do router.push only if the result is successful. I'm gonna look into the documentation here under paywall, displaying paywalls for React Native. There is a way to display it full screen with present paywall or present paywall if needed, but also we can manually render it with RevenueCat UI paywall, and this is going to work as rendering a component. Maybe you can do that in a layout if it's not paid, like you can render the paywall this way. And there is paywall result, and the paywall result, as you can see, that's what we should get back. And based on the paywall result, we need to go ahead and decide what we should do next. Paywall result imported from here. So if it's not presented, if it's error or canceled, if it's purchased or restored, then true, otherwise false. So I can do this switch case with a paywall result, and I can say, hey, redirect there only if you purchase or you restore the purchase. So now if I'm gonna go here, press on one of these items, it should show me the paywall. And you can decide here like what should happen, what you should do with this. So if I now press on this one, oh, it restored it, right? So if paywall result, can I do a console log paywall result? If I press not presented because it purchased, right? So I'm gonna put this case here as well. So if it's not presented, also redirect. Okay, perfect. All right, so that's how you can display these paywalls from the application. And from remotely, from your RevenueCat, you're also going to be able to go ahead and adjust these paywalls, including the design, including the images, titles, displaying different offers, different packages. You're gonna all do from here from RevenueCat, and it's going to automatically be displayed to the end users without you having to go and rebuild or redesign your paywall with every new experiment that you are going to do. And that's a very important part, because to maximize revenue with a subscription application, it's actually a lot about optimizing, about A/B testing, about running experiments and finding that right pricing point where you're gonna have maximum revenue. That point, the perfect titles, the perfect features, the perfect duration, and that involves a lot of experimentations. So you need to have a means or the easy ways to run these experiments without you having to code, without you having to rebuild, resubmit, and wait for Apple to approve your new version. And with this one, you can do that. You can run here with the paywalls. You can do that with experiments, with A/B testing. You can create different offerings, and then you're gonna see in the analytics which one is driving more revenue. Okay, so that was RevenueCat, and that's how you use them to manage in-app subscriptions. I'm gonna go ahead and do git add, git commit RevenueCat in-app subscriptions. And you know what? I promised you one thing, and I'll try to deliver it. My promise was that I'm gonna show you how we can do on this screen animated backgrounds. So let's quickly do that. We don't have a lot of time, but I'm gonna try to explain as I build it. So from the components, let's create a new animated background.tsx. Let's do export default function animated background, and we're going to return a view imported from React Native that has, let's do a class name bg, let's do yellow to 300, and also I'm going to position it absolute like this. Now let's go ahead and take this animated background in our application meditation ID and render it inside our safe area view. Animated background like this. Let's import animated background from components, and let's go to one of these pages. Now in the animated background, I don't think we actually need this background absolute. But maybe we're going to yes, background absolute. Let's do top 0, bottom 0, left 0, and right 0. That will basically, and if I do big background white here, it should be visible that this animated background view expands on the whole screen. I'm going to take the I'm gonna do bg, let me remember. I'm not gonna do any background here because my backgrounds are going to be different circles inside here. These circles, we're gonna do them with different views. For example, a view with a class name bg, first one is yellow 400. And this one also is going to be absolute positioned. And if we do with full and then aspect square, we're gonna see the view there at the bottom, 50 by 50. If I'm going to do rounded full, 10 minutes. Rounded full, that's going to look like a circle. But we want these circles to be very big. So instead of V full, I'm going to do V and here provide percentage. 100%, that's going to be full width. But if I do 400%, that's going to be like a huge circle. Now on the parent component, I'm going to do items center to center this in the middle. And for this circle, I'm going to say top. I'm gonna space it from the top, like I know 30%, what that will look like. Okay, that's good. Now if I add another view below, this one with yellow 300 and top, I don't know, 50%, that's going to be another circle. And if I do another one more, with a background orange 500, and here 70, that's going to be another one. So that's our 3 circles in the background. Now all we need to do is to animate them. To animate them, to move them top and bottom. To do that, we're going to use Reanimated. We already have that installed, so we're going to import Animated, and I'm going to render animated.view. To animate a component, it needs to be an animated component. Animated component. Let's go here. And the property that we're going to animate is that top property, like how many percentage or how many pixels from the top actually it needs to go. So first, to know how many pixels based on percentage, let's take the height of our screen using use dimensions. And our top value is going to be, for example, 0.7, where is 70%, or maybe 0.3 multiplied by the height. So that's going to be our top one. And we're going to have these values for the second circle and for the third circle. This one is 50% and this one is 70%. Now let's take these values and give them, instead of using class names, we can use class name, but I think it's easier if we simply do style and give here top one. To the second one, the top value is going to be top 2, and this one is going to be top 3. We have back the circle style there, but we can move them up and down based on this top value. To move them up and down, to animate them smoothly, these values should be shared values. Shared values live not on the JavaScript side, but on the UI thread, and updating them will animate with a nice performance with 60 frames per second, the views or the positions on the UI thread. So to do that, we're gonna use shared value hook from React Native Reanimated. We're gonna initialize with this value, and we're gonna do the same for the rest here. Now, if we, in a use effect, when we mount this component with empty dependency array, we need to start this animation. So if top one, I'm gonna say, hey, top one, using with timing is an animation function. So top one dot value is equal to with timing imported from Reanimated. If we are gonna move to 0.2 multiplied by height, you're gonna see what happens. I don't see what happens. If I do 0.1, okay, yeah, something is happened. If I change this one to 0.8, it moves down. If I do that, it slowly moves up. What we have to do is we have to slow it down. So with a second parameter duration, we're gonna say 4,000, which is 4 seconds. Now if I'm gonna move from 10% to 30%, it's going to slowly move down. If we put this one in a with repeat, we're gonna say that I want to repeat this animation over and over again. And with repeat is another animation imported from Reanimated. And it needs the second after the animation itself. How many times we want to repeat? -1 for infinite amount of times, and true in order to move back and forth. So what I'm going to do is from 0.3, I'm going to move to 0.2, then back. If I'm gonna go there, you're gonna see 4 seconds go to 0.2, 20% of the screen, then back to 30%. Then it's going to repeat 20%, 30%, and so on. So that's our animation. Another thing that we can do is the timing function. If you go to Reanimated with timing, the timing is, that function can be linear, but it's not necessarily linear. By default, it's this in and out, which is starting slow, then moves faster and then slower, which is fine here, but I think I want to be more aggressive, to start even slower. So you can do using a Bezier curve, and something like that, where you start slow, you move fast, and then slow. Something how your breath would look like. So the easing method is going to be something like this, that we can provide to the with timing. With timing, easing method is going to be imported from Reanimated. Make sure it's Reanimated. And I did it 0.5, then here is 0 actually, then also 0.5, and here 1. So if we go now here, it's going to be slow at the beginning, fast, and then slow, and then down. So it's very smooth, very nice, very natural. Now let's go ahead and extract these options from here to a separate object. Options, because they are going to be reused, and send them to the with timing second parameter options. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same for top 2 value, but this one is going to go from 0.5 to 0.4, and the same thing I'm gonna do with the top 3 value. The third circle is going to go from 0.7 to 0.6. So as we can see, what's happening, top 2, top 3. Why only the top 3 value is working? Options. Let me try to go back and come here. Okay, now all 3 are moving up and down. But the problem is that they are moving at the same rate, like they're moving, it's very strict. What I want to do is I want to add like a wave effect, where there is a delay between when the second one and third one starts. To do that, we can add here to the second one with delay, and we're gonna delay it with 1 second. I'm gonna put it like this. Let's import with delay. And the second one with delay is going to be with 2 seconds. Now, if I go there, we see that first the first one, then second, then third, and it nicely like a wave moves up and down. And that, guys, is our animated background for our meditation application. And I think this is time for us to wrap up this video, because I'm very happy with how it turned out. We have an application built with Expo SDK 52 with React Native 76. We have our meditation screen here. As you can see, we can go ahead and listen to the meditation with a new Expo audio library. We also have the paywalls that I already have paid, and I cannot show you, but we have a paywalls implemented with RevenueCat with subscriptions, and we can go ahead and monetize our application with in-app subscription using RevenueCat. Thank you very much, RevenueCat, for sponsoring this video. If you guys enjoy this one, make sure to subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments down below what other projects you'd like me to see build, and we're gonna do that in the following tutorials. All right, take care, stay hydrated, and I'll see you next week.